suicide. C'est sous le thème « Créer l'espoir par l'action » que nous allons saisir l'occasion de nous rappeler l'importance de la santé mentale, de la communication et de l'entraide. Puis j'encourage vraiment chacun et chacune d'entre vous à être attentif à vos proches, vos voisins, vos collègues, parce qu'un simple geste, une simple parole peut parfois faire toute la différence. Au mois de septembre aussi, plusieurs célébrations dans la communauté juive auront lieu. So I would like to wish the Jewish community in our borough a happy Rosh Hashanah. The Jewish New Year celebration will be held from sundown September 15 to sundown on September 17, so Shana Tova to all. Yom Kippur will also take place on September 24th to 25th, so I wish everyone an easy and meaningful fast. Donc voilà, je tiens à vous remercier chacune et chacun d'entre vous pour votre engagement continu dans notre arrondissement. Vos opinions, vos préoccupations puis vos espoirs nous guident dans toutes les décisions. Ensemble, on va continuer à bâtir une communauté qui est vibrante, qui est solidaire et qui est inclusive. So I wish you all an excellent council meeting, whether you're with us in person or online. So thank you very much. Avant de continuer la période de commentaires des élus, je veux juste m'assurer qu'on est en mesure d'avoir la diffusion en ligne. On est en ligne? Parfait. Donc, la prochaine personne à s'adresser à nous est Peter McQueen.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la mairesse. So, happy Labor Day to everybody. Bonne rentrée à tous les citoyens de Notre-Dame-de-Grâce. Premièrement, j'aimerais ouvrir en remerciant nos services pour Mme Gaudreau spécifiquement pour l'effort extra pour garder les piscines ouvertes quelques jours de plus durant la canicule. Je comprends que c'est pas facile que tous les jeunes sauveteuses retournent à l'école. So the swimming pools of the borough are open for a few more days during the heat wave this week, thanks to our enterprising staff making the efforts that they can. Also want to thank our blue collars for cleaning the splash pads. They were slippery in a few places, and I definitely went by a couple today, and they were not so slippery, so they made an effort in the last couple of weeks. Thank you. Parlant de la rentrée, mon fils est encore à l'école publique locale secondaire de notre arrondissement. Et alors, je suis un peu concerné avec les effets de la canicule sur l'éducation de nos jeunes. Je suis ce débat dans nos journaux. Au moins, my son goes to school by STM bus, so that way I don't have to drive him, or most mornings I don't have to drive him. Occasionally I do. But I am concerned about some of the traffic backups in our borough this morning, of course, because the buses are also caught in them, specifically the 51 bus along Fielding, usually Queen Mary. We have a difficult situation because of the work on Summerled and Marcel, where Côte-Saint-Luc eastbound is closed for a long stretch. They were supposed to only close it at Wilson Street, and unfortunately they're behind by a week, so they had to close it right at the intersection of Fielding-Ellerdale. And of course there's work on Queen Mary in Hampstead at the same time. So I'm pushing to try to get that improved by early next week at the latest, so that at least it can get to Wilson and people can have better access to both Royal Vale, Willingdon, and of course onto Queen Mary, DeCarey, and onto Terrebonne by Wilson. So the problem is that they've got to pave the intersection of Wilson and Summerled, and they're just finishing it up now. Il y a des bonnes nouvelles avec les travaux qu'on a faits aussi. Alors, c'est pas que la ville est toujours en retard. Je ne veux pas donner cette impression. Alors, les travaux sur Prud'homme entre Sherbrooke et Côte-Saint-Antoine ont été finis quand ils étaient supposés finis avant la rentrée. Alors, with curb extensions at both Sherbrooke Street and especially up at Côte-Saint-Antoine. Beautiful, big safety, creating curb extensions. They're a wonder to go see. So, je crois que les gens de l'Est de Notre-Dame-de-Grâce vont être très contents avec cette amélioration continue de la sécurité alentour du pôle, de la bibliothèque Botrel, l'école Notre-Dame-de-Grâce et la piscine Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, tout ce qui est important aux résidents de l'Est de Notre-Dame-de-Grâce. Je dois mentionner une petite chose de plus concernant les MTQ avec les travaux. Les MTQ a la mauvaise habitude de laisser des pancartes traîner dans notre arrondissement. So Transport Quebec, it's a bad habit of leaving signs blocking sidewalks around Djerward, Upper Lachine. So they seem not aware that we're also a community of people who walk and that people push baby carriages and they cannot block sidewalks with various detour signs. Et aussi, ils ont mis une grande, a sort of movable digital sign has been there on Sherbrooke Street at Djerward. And it's still announcing, I just went by earlier today, it's still announcing road work from July 24th to August 15th. So it's not up to date and, taking up sidewalk space on Sherbrooke. Alors, je demande au MTQ de faire mieux ici dans notre belle ville de Montréal avec les pancartes et leur signalisation de tous leurs travaux routiers. On the positive side, the fun stuff that goes on in our community, of course, is the end of the garden season, and I want to invite you all to the new garden we installed this year at Place Guillaume Couture, which is right near Terrebonne and Djerward. So it's going to be the seed-saving ceremony or exchange, and it's going to happen on Sunday, September 17th from 2 to 4 p.m. But you can actually come by any Sunday you want, 2 to 4 p.m. It's harvest season. The vegetables are looking good, so anybody who shows up and does a little bit of gardening can walk away with some nice, fresh Montreal vegetables. On the agenda tonight, I want to announce that we are voting to put new lighting system on the tennis courts at Warren Allman Summerled Park. So that's going ahead. We're voting that tonight. And I also want to say that the chalet there with the washrooms will be renovated hopefully next year. We haven't, we're going to be going to bids later this fall. Obviously, we're hoping for a decent price to do that. And that work was also unfortunately put back, I think, 1 year because of all the work on Summerled. So I think that's about it for me. So happy Rosh Hashanah to everybody, and I hope everybody has a meaningful fast for Yom Kippur. Have a good evening.
Merci beaucoup. Nous allons maintenant à Sonny Morose.
Bonjour. Merci d'être présent. Merci, Madame la mairesse. Bienvenue à septembre, tout le monde. J'aimerais juste prendre le temps au début to make reference to the flooding that happened in NDG. My colleague and I both went to go see it on the ground firsthand. We got contacts directly from business owners who are on Côte-Saint-Luc Road, as well as property owners around the sector, and it's clear that there's an ongoing problem there. Similar to what we saw in Snowdon around Côte-Saint-Luc Road on Coolbrook and Earnscliffe, and we need to do more as a city in order to make our instances, our public spaces more resilient to this kind of flooding, where the flooding came in from outside and not necessarily from inside because the issues with the pipes. Similarly, there's an ongoing issue on Vizina and DeCarry, similar to what Mr. McQueen mentioned during his intro. For those who live in the area, it's been a nightmare since August 25th. I just want to let you know that I took that route on that Friday when it first went down and found out that there was 2 lanes that were blocked. Not just one that's currently blocked, and activated immediately and called every single one of the people that the mayor referred to, but you also have to call about 6 or 7 other instances that can do work in our area. The list is found publicly on the Montreal.ca website, and unfortunately, only this morning when I tried to call Info Travail again, were they able to identify the work permit from the Service Électrique de Montréal, and they apparently have the work permit going on until the next work permit starts, which on September 10th it starts until the 29th of September. So we're going to continue to have ongoing traffic at that intersection. Please take pictures if you see something egregious happen, not while you're driving. You can send them to me at sunny.morose@montreal.ca. I also want to really thank the administration and the services for continuing to push forward for the large item that's on the agenda today, which is a new chalet at Mackenzie King Park, something I've been involved for 13 years now in politics. There's always been a problem with the bathrooms at Mackenzie King Park, and I'm really, really glad to see not just an investment, but a significant improvement on the original plans that I saw to include more public space, more private locker rooms, to have a permanent location where there can be somebody who's there. is the Vanderville Cricket Club, which is an increasingly growing sport in Quebec. For those who didn't see all the articles this summer, any sports news reference you can make will have included in it cricket as a growing sport. Cricket is as a youth sport in Côte-des-Neiges. And I hope that we can continue to make more investments, because if you go any morning to McDonald Park, to Van Horn and Mandela Park, you'll see teams and teams and teams of people playing cricket. And if you are nervous and want to get involved, you can give me a call or a text. I'd be happy to introduce you to the teams. They have sessions where they can teach you how to bowl and how to hit and catch. And let me know if you're interested about cricket. I also want to wish a happy holidays to the Jewish community, Chag Sameach, and I hope that your name gets written in the Book of Life this year. Also on September 30th, there's National Truth and Reconciliation Day, or Orange Shirt Day. It's a new holiday in Canada, and it's a time when individuals could learn new things for themselves. Everyone's on a path of learning, but also as a society, we need to start coming to terms with some of these truths and start incorporating into our daily habits. Lastly, I'd like to, when it comes to truth and reconciliation, the truth part hits home because a new edition of the Montreal Community Contact came out this week, which after the passing of Egbert Gay, who was the founder and editor of the Montreal Community Contact, I was happy to hear that his work through the Montreal Community Contact will continue, and it was Maya Johnson of Global News who got her start at Montreal Community Contact, who is the guest editor, and his son, Imar Mitchell. And through his dedication and hard work during this time of personal grief, I really want to thank you, Imar, for soldiering on. And lastly, there's a motion that is being introduced tonight and supporté par ma collègue Stéphanie, qui adresse un gros enjeu international qui a un impact ici aussi et à travers le monde. Vladimir Kara-Murza is a human rights activist and opposition leader in Russia who was jailed by Vladimir Putin's regime. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison, and the motion hopes to acknowledge the work he's been doing as a champion in democratic reform and institution building. He's a young man with 3 kids who has already been poisoned and attacked in public. He's somebody who inspires me every day, and it's an honor to be able to introduce this motion and debate it at this council. And I hope that we can find consensus in voting forward a motion that acknowledges and continues to highlight his good work as he is unfortunately jailed in Russia. Thank you.
Merci. La personne sera Stéphanie Valenzuela. J'aimerais juste peut-être que les services puissent calculer le temps, là, parce qu'on ne le voit plus à l'écran. Est-ce qu'on y va? Non, j'aimerais juste que quelqu'un le calcule sur son téléphone. Ça va?
C'est beau.
Allez-y.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la mairesse. Donc, bonsoir à toutes et à tous. Merci encore une fois pour votre participation active à notre démocratie ici dans notre arrondissement. C'est un plaisir de retourner avec vous après notre pause estivale. Et j'espère que tout le monde a pu profiter de l'été et a pu aussi lutter contre les journées et les soirées caniculaires comme celui qu'on a aujourd'hui et qu'on aurait pour les prochains jours. Cet été, j'ai passé une grande partie de mon temps à rencontrer et à parler avec de nombreux résidents de mon district et un peu partout dans l'arrondissement. C'est toujours un plaisir pour moi d'échanger directement avec les résidents pour savoir vraiment quelles sont leurs préoccupations, les entendre, savoir comment je pourrais amener des changements pour améliorer les situations dans l'arrondissement. Et à cause de ces échanges-là, j'ai pu vraiment entendre les résidents de mon secteur et c'est grâce à ces échanges-là que je présenterai une motion plus tard ce soir concernant les mesures appropriées et adéquates pour réduire et atténuer les impacts des nuisances sonores dans mon secteur causées par le REM éventuellement. Avec la demande faite par la santé publique au mois de juin à la CDPQ Infra, suite à l'augmentation des décibels de 75 dans les secteurs de Griffintown, Pointe-Saint-Charles et Île-de-Sœur, je crois qu'il est essentiel que nous, comme arrondissement et comme élus qui représentent quand même un secteur important qui va être impacté, qu'on soit vraiment représentatif des besoins du secteur et qu'on agit proactivement pour assurer qu'on n'aura pas les mêmes impacts que les résidents de ces secteurs que j'ai nommés tantôt. Donc, c'est pour cette raison-là qu'on amène une motion à la fin de la soirée, spécifiquement demandant à certaines instances qui sont directement impliquées dans le dossier de vraiment assurer que les besoins sont bien adressés au niveau des impacts sonores puis visuels dans le district de Darlington, qui aura la gare qu'on aura active encore, espérons, dans la prochaine année. Donc, pour tous ceux et celles qui suivent nos conseils d'arrondissement depuis le tout début, vous avez sans doute remarqué l'acharnement et la régularité avec lesquels j'évoque la nécessité d'appliquer les mesures de protection et de résilience au niveau des inondations dans mon district et surtout dans le district de M. Moreau aussi. Ce sont des secteurs très, très connus pour des inondations. Et depuis l'année dernière, j'ai amené une motion, j'ai posé plusieurs questions au niveau de nos conseils d'arrondissement, surtout pour savoir quelles sont les mesures et les prochaines étapes dans mon coin de Darlington, que ce soit Glencoe, Clinton, de Vimy ou dans le secteur de M. Morose, qui a un secteur qui est non assurable en ce moment. Je l'avais même amené comme sujet au conseil du mois de juillet. J'avais posé une question aux membres et à nos services. Et malheureusement, le 13 juillet, nous avons vu encore une fois que c'était une réalité, non seulement dans nos secteurs. Dans mon coin, il y a eu une douzaine de résidences qui ont été impactées dans le coin de Glencoe. Mais nous voyons qu'il y a un problème un peu partout maintenant dans l'arrondissement et dans la ville de Montréal. Donc, je veux juste réitérer, I just want to reiterate that, you know, it's not something that I just bring up lightly. I understand that there is enormous costs that go into, you know, changing infrastructure. There are enormous costs that go into planifications for resilient areas. But these are important things that we need to account for. We need to put them in our budgets, and we need to make sure that we find the reasons for each sector on why they are being flooded. So I just want to reiterate that that is my priority, and I will continue to follow the file very, very closely. I have about 1 minute left, so I just want to, wish the entire Jewish community of my district and of the borough happy holidays, Hag Sameach, to everyone that will be celebrating Rosh Hashanah, and to the community here in our borough that celebrated so many great festivals in the last summer. I hope that you were all able to celebrate with us all, and whatever comments that you have, please share them with us. I know that there are great positive aspects to our festivals and our parks, but there are also a few issues that have been brought up to us, so please don't hesitate to share them with us so that we can improve them going forward, whether it's a question of sound or other cohabitation issues. Please don't hesitate to send them over to us. And also, I just want to say, in the summer, there's been a lot of emails and calls sent out to me about requests that were made through 311 that weren't handled appropriately, or sometimes the files were closed and they weren't actually taken care of. So don't stop sending over the issues to 311. Keep sending us the reference numbers, and we will make sure to follow up. Thank you so much. Bon conseil.
La prochaine personne sera Magda Popeanu.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la mairesse. Bonsoir à toutes et à tous et merci d'être avec nous ce soir, comme d'habitude, en grand nombre pour ce conseil d'arrondissement qui marque le début de la rentrée pour tout le monde, incluant nos plus petits qui sont rentrés à l'école. J'espère aussi que vous avez profité de la programmation estivale qui a été fort intéressante, mais malheureusement, il y en a eu des événements qui ont été annulés à cause de la température qui n'a pas toujours été favorable. Donc, merci à l'arrondissement et à toute la population qui se sont énormément investis pour rendre agréable notre environnement de vie. Je voudrais commencer pour mentionner que nous avons célébré hier la fête du travail. C'est aussi une occasion de se rappeler son origine pour mettre certaines choses en perspective. C'est en effet une célébration des combats du mouvement ouvrier pour obtenir la journée de 8 heures dans le siècle avant, donc le 19e siècle. Mais c'est aussi une opportunité pour se rappeler que les avancées sociétales nécessitent souvent de se battre contre le statu quo, ce que je sais que vous faites et je vous invite de continuer à le faire. Ce soir, il y a plein de bonnes nouvelles lors de ce conseil d'arrondissement. Tout d'abord, l'arrondissement reconnaît le rôle central des tables de quartier dans le développement social et nous accordons un soutien financier pour mettre beaucoup d'argent à leur disposition. Les tables de quartier contribuent ainsi à la mise en place ou au renforcement d'un espace permettant aux acteurs locaux de mieux se connaître, de se comprendre, de mutualiser leurs ressources. Une autre nouvelle importante pour le milieu est la bonification de la contribution financière accordée à la Corporation de développement communautaire de Côte-des-Neiges. La CDC joue un rôle clé en matière de lutte à la pauvreté et à l'exclusion sociale. D'ailleurs, le service de la diversité et de l'inclusion sociale et l'arrondissement ont bonifié beaucoup de projets pour privilégier un besoin émergent dans notre milieu. Plusieurs groupes communautaires agissent en première ligne auprès des personnes immigrantes et des personnes qui demandent de l'asile. Je suis également très fière de vous présenter ce soir en première lecture le règlement sur le bruit à l'égard de l'arrondissement Côte-des-Neiges Notre-Dame-de-Grâce. Au fil des années, j'ai reçu beaucoup de plaintes concernant le bruit de la part de citoyens dont la qualité de vie était diminuée à cause de cette nuisance importante en milieu urbain, le bruit. Un règlement de bruit, c'est de la compétence de l'arrondissement et doit contenir les normes concernant les nuisances créées par les bruits excessifs supérieures à des normes qui sont préétablies. Donc, en consultant plusieurs règlements qui souhaitaient encadrer cette nuisance, je me suis rendu compte que nos règlements, mais surtout les ordonnances qui dataient de 1977, nécessitaient une mise à jour afin de faciliter leur application par les inspecteurs, mais aussi pour donner plus de pouvoir à l'arrondissement pour faire exécuter des travaux ou des analyses et ajouter des nouvelles normes. Donc, très bonne nouvelle pour tout le monde et merci aux services qui ont travaillé aussi très fort, Madame Reeves aussi. Pour une deuxième année, la Société de développement commercial de Côte-des-Neiges organise la piétonisation de la rue Lacombe du 12 au 17 septembre. Lacombe va être une rue de festivités pendant 6 jours. De Gatineau à Côte-des-Neiges, elle se transformera dans une plage urbaine sur la thématique des derniers jours de plage à Copacabana pour célébrer la fin de l'été, mais aussi pour permettre aux commerçants de bien entamer la nouvelle année économique. Je voulais également mentionner une collaboration grandissante dont je suis très fière. Depuis le début du mandat, nous avons développé des liens avec l'Université de Montréal, une institution immanquable, je dirais, de notre arrondissement. Une de ces collaborations a permis d'avoir 6 jeunes de Côte-des-Neiges qui ont eu accès gratuitement à leur camp de jour et profiter des activités sportives et pédagogiques de qualité. I will end by wishing a happy Navratri, which is a Hindu celebration of feminine energy. Mais aussi, je souhaite pour la période de Yom Kippur, vous souhaitez Gmatov, et pour le nouvel an, Happy Rosh Hashanah. Sur ces bonnes nouvelles, je vous souhaite un excellent conseil d'arrondissement.
Merci beaucoup. Donc, nous sommes maintenant à Despina Sourias.
Bon retour aussi à tout le monde. On a nos habitués qui sont avec nous et bon rentrée à tous les jeunes qui ont repris l'école, qui ont commencé l'école. Comme ma fille, elle a commencé la maternelle cette année. Donc, bon retour à tout le monde, bon rentrée. Of course, like my colleagues, I would like to start by acknowledging what happened on July 13 and the floods that happened in my district. Of course, I was on the ground. I've met many of you. We've spoken on the phone as well. I know it was not an easy time. I'm not going to reiterate what the mayor said and what my colleague said. We know it's been very hard, and we are presently working on getting all the answers that you are seeking and to answer your demands as much as and as well as we can for now and also for the future, of really finding solutions for the future. We were one of the first boroughs to put in place the les jardins, the water gardens, the trap water. So we kind of have a head start on that, but there's still some unanswered questions that I know you're waiting for, and we're going to get to them, like we mentioned, at the information session that is coming up in October. Until then, of course, we're still here for you, and I'm going to continue meeting residents as I continued doing this summer. Outside of this very difficult event, the summer was also a time to meet my constituents, to meet other members of the community, to enjoy some local activities, and also a time to set my priorities, to see what we've done, what we haven't done. When I was elected, I really got into this because I wanted to improve the quality of life of Montrealers, of people of NDG, and I think that we've put some things in place that are going towards that direction. I'm not saying that the quality of life wasn't there before, but we're working on securing our streets more, bringing more secured bike paths to our various areas in the borough and in my district. We're working on improving our park infrastructure, chalets. There's several of them that we're doing over the next couple of years. Working on our main arteries, 2 commercial arteries, reviving them. These are things that we do to create the quality of life that we want for residents of all backgrounds and of all means. So that being said, there's many items on the agenda today that my colleagues mentioned that are going in that direction as well. J'aimerais noter le fait qu'on va on va réaménager le terrain de baseball dans le parc Benny, qui est important de le dire parce que le baseball reprend un peu ses airs à Montréal, puis surtout à NDG avec NDG Baseball Association qui travaille très fort à amener les jeunes vers le baseball. D'ailleurs, ils ont un programme pour initier les jeunes filles au baseball. Donc, le terrain de baseball sera mis à niveau prochainement. Il y a aussi dans ce contrat-là, on va aussi défaire le vieux skatepark pour mettre en place le nouveau bientôt, qui est dû pour l'année prochaine. Donc, avec ce contrat-là, on avance sur cette bonne direction-là. Une autre action importante pour construire des milieux de vie de qualité, c'est d'assurer d'avoir des processus pour avoir une meilleure participation citoyenne. Puis une façon qu'on fait ça, c'est à travers les budgets participatifs. Donc, c'est pour avoir vos idées, on met des budgets participatifs, puis on vous donne l'argent pour qu'on puisse les mettre en place. Donc, l'année passée, la Ville de Montréal a eu son 2e budget participatif. Et là, les projets vont aller en vote. Il y a plusieurs projets qui sont associés à notre arrondissement. Il y a 8 projets qui sont associés à Côte-des-Neiges-NDG. Puis on va on va les nommer aujourd'hui. On va passer à l'action avec ça. Puis vous pouvez aller voter pour ces projets-là pour les voir ici. J'aimerais aussi dire qu'il y a 2 semaines, notre administration a annoncé la venue de la boîte Bienvenue Bébé. C'est un projet sur lequel je travaille depuis, du moment que j'étais élue. En fait, c'est un programme, un projet qui est là pour accueillir les nouveau-nés avec des produits qui sont utiles pour les familles, qui leur donnent un petit coup de pouce, mais aussi qui les lient à la ville. Donc, c'est un beau projet qui sera disponible dans les 45 bibliothèques qui s'apparente un peu aux trousses qui existent en Finlande ou à Écosse, mais vraiment en saveur municipale. Puis quand je dis l'importance d'être connecté à la ville, il y a le 8 septembre, c'est la journée internationale de l'alphabétisation. Puis l'alphabétisation, en fait, on sait c'est quoi, c'est it's literacy. Ça vient à travers l'éducation formelle et informelle. Ça vient avec le fait d'avoir accès à l'information, mais aussi tout ça, ça nous permet d'avoir une participation citoyenne plus active. Donc connecter, pour nous en tant qu'élus puis en tant que ville, être connecté à nos services, être connecté à notre ville, avoir l'information, c'est important. Donc dans cette optique-là, je vois une célébration pour la ville, c'est ça, de rester connecté, de rester informé, de donner les moyens aussi citoyens de s'outiller pour avoir un plus grand impact dans leur communauté et sur nos politiques à la ville. Et sur ça, happy Rosh Hashanah to everyone. Have a meaningful and restful fast, and that's it. Thank you. Ciao. Right on time.
Parfait, merci. Donc, nous sommes au point 10.05, donc la période de questions orales du public. Donc, avant d'entamer cette période de questions, puis ça va suivre on va suivre avec la période de questions écrites. Donc, je vais demander à nos services d'expliquer, en fait, aux citoyens comment va fonctionner la période de questions. D'entrée de jeu, je veux simplement vous dire, de vous rappeler de parler très près du micro lorsque vous allez venir poser vos questions pour nous assurer que tout le monde puisse vous entendre ici sur place et en ligne. Donc, je vous laisse expliquer le fonctionnement de la période de questions.
Certainement. Depuis la nouvelle réglementation qui est en vigueur depuis décembre 2022, la période de questions du public est de 90 minutes, qui est répartie comme suit: 50 minutes pour les questions orales, 40 minutes pour les questions écrites. Nous avons remis aux élus et aux directeurs la liste des questions suivant l'ordre qui a été déterminé par tirage au sort. Il y a 20 personnes qui se sont inscrites pour poser leurs questions en personne. 8 personnes nous ont soumis des questions par écrit. Un maximum de 3 questions peuvent être soumises sur un même sujet. Les personnes présentes qui n'auront pas pu poser leurs questions pourront le faire après la période de questions écrites si le temps le permet. Les personnes qui posent une 4e question sur un même sujet seront entendues à la toute fin de la période si le temps le permet. Nous invitons les citoyens présents à regarder le chronomètre et à respecter un maximum de 2 minutes pour poser une première question et 1 minute pour poser une deuxième question, telle que prévue dans notre réglementation. Je demanderai aux personnes au micro de conclure lorsqu'il restera 15 minutes au chronomètre et pour chacune des questions. La mairesse doit veiller à ce que la période de questions ne donne lieu à aucun débat, soit entre les membres du conseil, soit entre un membre du conseil et une personne présente. La mairesse peut limiter ou retirer le droit de parole à toute personne qui ne respecte pas cette règle ou dont l'intervention ne respecte pas les délais prescrits. Les personnes présentes avec des enfants ou qui utilisent le transport adapté, qui doivent quitter avant la fin de la période de questions, bénéficient d'une priorité faisant abstraction de l'ordre qui a été déterminé par tirage au sort. Finalement, petit rappel à tout le monde, veuillez fermer la sonnerie de vos téléphones cellulaires ou les mettre en mode vibration. Merci.
So under the new bylaw that took effect on December 14, 2022, the public question period is 90 minutes long, divided into 50 minutes for oral questions and 40 minutes for written questions. We have given the list of questions to the elected officials and directors following the order determined by a random draw. 20 people registered to ask questions in person and 8 people submitted questions in writing. A maximum of 3 questions is allowed on a given subject. People attending the meeting and who were unable to ask their questions may do so at the end of the period for written questions if time allows. 4 questions on the same subject may be asked at the very end of question period if time allows. We ask that residents keep an eye on the timer and limit their first question to 2 minutes and their second question to 1 minute as stipulated in the new bylaw. At 15 seconds before the time runs out, the Borough Secretary will ask individuals at the microphone to complete their question. The Mayor must ensure that the public question and information period does not lead to a debate between council members or a council member and a person attending the meeting. She may limit or withdraw the right to speak of any person who does not respect this rule or who exceeds the time limits. Individuals attending the meeting with children or those using paratransit services and who must leave before the end of question period have priority over the order determined by the random draw. As a reminder to everyone in this room, please turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate.
OK, alors on est prêt à commencer la période de questions. La première question sera par Costa Fokoef. Peut-être juste avant que vous commenciez, je veux juste m'assurer parce que je vois une personne avec un enfant. Je me demandais si vous étiez au début de la période de questions. So I see somebody with a child. So are you, what's your name, sir? Are you registered for a question?
I wanted to ask, but
Written. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to make sure that we were able to prioritize. No, it's just if you have a verbal question, you could be prioritized if you have a children. But it's not the case because it's written question. Okay. All right. Donc, Costa Fokoef, c'est à vous.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
I would like it to be louder. Je sais pas si c'est possible.
I don't think it's on.
It's open.
Is it open? Okay. My name is Costa Fokoef. Thank you. I'm a resident of the Loyola District, and our area at Patricia and Canard has been hit very severely by the flood of July 13. I had up to 4.5 feet of water in my basement and in my semi-basement apartment, and perhaps a bit more in some areas. Everything was destroyed by the sewer water that came in from the street and the backup that came in through the toilets. It's without saying that our tenant lost everything that he had in his apartment, and we're still trying to assess the full magnitude of the damage of our loss. We had to strip everything in the apartment right down to the concrete, and I've had an initial estimate. I can tell you that the insurance will cover only a fraction of the damage, And I don't even know if I can repair the apartment and bring it up to code so that it can be rented again. I have no idea how many months it's going to take, if I can even afford to do it. It's just not clear. I want you to know that the insurance companies are not covering anywhere near the damage that was done. And we still haven't a full assessment. So my question to you is, to what degree is the borough and the city taking responsibility for the damage that was caused by the flood? I'm not blaming you for global warming. I understand that. But the moment that the raindrop hits the ground, it's your responsibility. How have you been managing it? Our impression is that it hasn't been managed very well, and there was backup. I have pictures where the water pressure was so powerful, it burst up the manhole cover 3 feet up into the air. The water that was on our street was not from Patricia. It was clearly coming from somewhere else. That degree of pressure, it's impossible to be just from our street. So I just
En conclusion,
I want to know to what degree of responsibility you're taking. That's my question.
so thank you very much. Thank you very much for your question and for being here tonight. We've been, Despina did door-to-door. I did door-to-door as well. We received many emails, and what you described, other people also describe it, and we could understand how difficult the situation was. In terms of the responsibility that the city could take, I don't know if you're talking legally. So what we've been doing since that happened. So when that happened, first thing that we did is that with the services, we ensured that everything was cleaned up in the street. That's one thing. The other thing that we did is that we asked questions to our services because people were saying maybe les puisards, how do you say that? The catch basins, was that in cause? They told us that it wasn't, and we also spoke to the service de l'eau to understand what happened. So that's the work that's being done with the service de l'eau at this moment. And they're going to come to see the citizens, the residents of Loyola at the end of October to show you guys the analysis that they did. Because a lot of things were said about what could be the cause. You mentioned climate change. The link with climate change is that the amount of water that we receive in that short period of time at that moment made it difficult for the sewers to dissipate the water in the system. I'm sorry, I'm doing this in English, and it's really okay. Technical elements. And why it was particularly important in your sector in Loyola, it's what we were told is because it's a cuvette. So there's many cuvettes in the city. There's other ones in CDN-NDG, and even though we had bigger sewers, that amount of water that came that day in a short period of time would have created the same thing. So that's why we are waiting for the analysis of the service de l'eau to see, okay, what caused that in terms of the geography of that sector, and what needs to be changed to make sure that this does not happen, right. Next time.
I understand that. I guess my point is that to some degree there may have been a problem with the sewer system. There might have been some kind of blockage which caused it. But over and above that, you expect these sort of things, they're going to happen again. This was 62 inches that came. We can get 100, we can get 200. Mm-hmm. Most cities have some kind of overflow system where the regular sewer system can't handle it. They have overflow areas. NDG is on a high plain. There's a 150-foot cliff at the end of the St. Jacques Falaise. I don't see why the water has to stay and come to our corner of NDG. There has to be a way to get rid of that water. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. My second question is, and I hope you find a solution to that. Well, my second question is, are you prepared to make the necessary modifications to the infrastructure to ensure that you control erratic flooding like what we've experienced? We know it's going to happen again. It's not going to be the last time. It may be next year, it may be 10 years from now, 20 years. Mm-hmm. You have time to build the kind of infrastructure when there is that kind of a torrential rain that the ordinary system that's there cannot handle it. There has to be some kind of overflow rather than the overflow coming into our basements, okay?
So thank you very much for your second question. So what I said earlier is that your sector is a cuvette. So even though you said there's a cliff, around where you live, it's a cuvette, so it's a place where that it's lower compared to other places around you. So that's why those things happen in a sector like yours and in other sectors in Montreal. So in terms of what we're doing to change our infrastructure, so I could assure you, because I'm sitting around those tables, that the City of Montreal is, so there's already online a map of where all the cuvettes are, and the Service de l'eau is already working on, the plan to rectify sometimes the geometry of the street, sometimes the sewers, so to make sure that this doesn't happen again. But this work is going to take decades, like if we're talking all over Montreal. So there's different cuvettes all over Montreal.
As long as you prioritize the areas that have been the hardest hit, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, but
what I'm hearing from you is that you intend to solve the problem.
I'm sorry, this is the second
it?
question.
Yeah.
I'm giving you an answer. We could continue to talk about it if you have more questions, because it's not simple. But what I'm saying is the City of Montreal is on it. Of course, they are prioritizing where there was more floods like that, but we need to know that there's other sectors where this happens several times a year already.
Right.
So they need to do that prioritization. Despina and I will make sure that this stays on the priorities of the city, but also in the borough, we're going to make sure that we also have a plan in how we plan our infrastructures. For example, she spoke about parc des pluies. It's things that we could try to do in the borough to make sure that this helps to relieve the stress on the sewers. So those are the type of work that we're doing. I know people want answers about what we're going to do tomorrow.
That's not
Unfortunately,
what I'm asking.
that takes time.
What I understand you're saying is that you will deal with the issue.
We are dealing with it already.
Long-term issues, and you're willing to consider the probability that this sort of thing will happen again, and you'll be able to deal with it when it happens. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I do want to say one other thing.
Sorry. Your time is up.
You're gonna like it.
No, sorry. I'm really sorry. There's 20 questions. We have a limited amount of time, so I'm going to ask the next person to come to the mic, please. Sorry. Thank you very much. So la prochaine personne est Bob Boutillier.
Madame Mairesse, conseiller, conseillère, the brains of the borough, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the president of the Royal Canadian Legion, branch 24106 at Addington and Maisonneuve. We are prepared to have a Hanukkah Christmas party for underprivileged kids, to host it at our branch for people designated by the borough to come. Okay? As a corollary to that, Mr. Munoz, we are prepared to host any community groups at our Legion. The image of the Legion was exclusive. That's gone. Out. Boom. We're inclusive. I'm going to get heck for this. We regard ourselves as the NDG East Community Center. So we have NDG minor hockey, rugby, Girl Guides with us. So we'd like to know if the borough is prepared to work with us to send us the people for us hosting a Hanukkah Christmas party.
So thank you very much for your question, Bob. I'm happy to see you again. You could always send us the information to the member of the council, and if it's possible for us to attend, it will be our pleasure. And our services and us around the table, we're always there to see what we could do to help you at the Legion.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I also grew up in the Loyola area playing baseball from 5 years old to 17. After that, I wasn't good enough to junior B, so I appreciate that. But my friend Dave Mason actually pitched for the Detroit Tigers for a few years. I would also remind, I'll run the other question in, and that is a reminder that on the 5th of November, Sunday at 1400 hours, is the annual Remembrance Day Parade at the currently named sort of NDG Park at the Place Vimy. And I'd ask the council if they would be willing to consider modifying the name to Park NDG Jackie Wallace. Jackie Wallace contributed his time for more than 50 years to the NDG youth, including me. I was young at one point, in case you're wondering, okay? And he indeed was even there for when I was young. For those that aren't aware, Jackie Wallace was a little person, okay? Shorter than me, okay? And he contributed to NDG for more than 50 years. So I'm asking the council if they'd be willing to consider modifying the name of the park in honor of that.
So is it for me the question?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
okay. So, I mean, thank you very much for that suggestion. Actually, we have at the city now like a cadre de référence, so like a policy and a process for all the recognition that we want to do in the city, whether it's parks, streets, etc. So it will need to go through that cadre de référence. But what we could do, my team could send you the information if the Legion wants to work on that.
Definitely, we'd support that. I personally support it since he was an adult helping me when I was growing up playing baseball at Loyola Park.
Thank you very much for being with us. Non. Alors la prochaine personne est Steven Jazz.
Mbote, yeah?
Mbote.
I'm going to speak in English. I am actually full of rage. So full of rage. For the past 4 years, so many bad, stupid, embarrassing things have been done to CDN-NDG. It needs 20 conseils d'arrondissement to mention them. But today, I want to talk about the effing stupid yellow lines running down Sherbrooke Street.
I'm sorry. Because
the stupid. Okay, I take back. We'll just say call them the stupid.
Yeah, it's important
yellow
that
lines.
there's kids watching us. I think we need to make sure that we respect the council.
Thank you. Of course, this was before your election, so I'd like to address it to you or to whoever can answer or whoever has an answer to this stupidity. As a cyclist, nobody likes the idea of casually going 10, 15, 20 kilometers an hour down a road and being doored. But as a pedestrian, I've actually been swiped twice by cars. I've had about 10 or 12 close calls on Sherbrooke Street by cars, trucks, and buses going 40, 50, 60 kilometers an hour. My daughter has had 4 or 5 close calls going in and out of our minivan. It's a sliding door. It's not a door that opens. But yet she's had close calls, and my car mirror has been knocked off twice. Why? Well, the previous councillors here or people on the upper floors decided, hey, let's create a huge empty space right down the middle of Sherbrooke Street. Let's shove everything over to the right as much as we can to all the parked cars. That'll teach the cyclists a lesson, not to cycle.
En conclusion,
That'll teach the pedestrians, oh heavens, 2 minutes.
maybe just ask your first question and then we'll go to the next one.
I'll try to extend it afterwards. Who had the brain fart to come up with this idea, and when will this be corrected and everything return back to normal? Let's start off this way, please.
So I'm going to ask the services to answer, but it's really important for the next part of your question that we made sure that we, use appropriate terms. I really insist because we need to respect this council. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to give you an answer. Donc, je vais demander au service de répondre à cette première question, s'il vous plaît.
Yeah, so basically the reason why we did that is quite obvious. On Sherbrooke Street, there was not enough space to put 2 lines for the cars to run officially. When, like 4 or 5 years ago, we were able to, because there was only one straight line in the middle, cars were able to go through beside, un à côté de l'autre. But at a lot of places, there was not enough space to allow that. It was dangerous. So for the security of the drivers and obviously of the pedestrians and of the cyclists, we decided to make sure that with the signage that we put, the lines that we put there, cars would not be able to drive side by side, but one after another. So maybe at the first glance it doesn't make sense, but we're not that stupid. What we've done was for security reason. We knew, and we still know, that it's not as fluent for cars because, there's only one lane now, but that's basically why we did it. And it's respecting all the Code de la Sécurité routière. And you see that on a lot, not a lot, but some streets in Montreal where you think that there's enough space for cars to ride side by side, but there's not, and it's dangerous. So that's why we did it 4 or 5 years ago.
So I'm going to ask you to ask your second question. You have one minute.
It is understood that we've reduced Sherbrooke down to 1 lane. I have no issues with that. I just find it odd that we have shoved everything over to the right to make everything dangerous. We cannot even, as a driver, we can't even go straight down the road if somebody wants to turn left or if somebody wants to park their car. And in the winter, everybody parks 3, 4, 5 feet away from the sidewalk. And so it's actually encroaching on this single lane. There has to be some type of solution to get this to work, because I'm sick and tired of just trying to get to the vehicle or trying to get my daughter out and just being swiped by the side. Fine, the lane has to be this wide. Why can it not just be shoved over and just, in my mind, this is unsafe for pedestrians crossing the road, unsafe for drivers, unsafe for cyclists.
En conclusion.
Please consider otherwise, and I would appreciate any comments from anybody. Thank you.
So I'm gonna go ahead. I mean, thank you for what you're bringing up. Clearly, I understand what you mean. I think we need to improve the safety on Sherbrooke Road. We had different propositions, for example, adding a rev on Sherbrooke West, So, there's many different ideas. I know that a lot of pedestrians are asking us, more places to cross. So, we really need, to rethink, the Sherbrooke West part that is in NDG to make sure that everyone on that road could cross safely. I think this was done in the previous years that seemed to have worked at that time. Maybe that doesn't work anymore. So, we're going to look into it. Thank you very much. Alors, la prochaine personne est Joël Copetiers.
Bonsoir, Mme la mairesse. Je crois que ma question va être rebondie au service, mais je vous la dirige en premier.
Allez-y.
À propos du 4006, la nouvelle politique face aux bibliothèques, je suis content de voir l'insistance sur la démocratisation de la lecture. J'ai pas grandi dans une famille qui était très riche. On ne pouvait pas se permettre les sports et la bibliothèque est devenue mon refuge qui a affecté le reste de ma vie. Quand j'étais dans la bibliothèque, j'étais rarement le mieux habillé et puis je crois que quand j'y étais, je sentais pas toujours les roses.
Pardon.
Certaines journées. En lisant les détails de la politique, je remarque qu'il y a 3 ou 4 des paragraphes qui ont trait au code vestimentaire, à une tenue qui est sous les exigences, à une question de punaise de lit, si certains enfants se présentent avec punaise de lit. Et puis, ça me laisse avec quelques hésitations si on veut vraiment démocratiser, particulièrement nos enfants qui sont de familles moins bien nantis, ont probablement parmi ceux qui ont le plus besoin des bibliothèques. Et ce que je m'inquiète, c'est si ça a trouvé sa place dans le règlement en 3 ou 4 endroits, est-ce que c'est parce que ça a été un problème qu'on essaie de régler? Je veux m'assurer aussi que c'est une politique qui est appliquée de façon un peu humaine. Surtout dans notre arrondissement, Côte-des-Neiges-NDG, on a beaucoup de familles pas très bien nanties, qui ne sont pas toujours le mieux habillées, qui ne sont pas toujours dans des appartements où il y a toujours de l'eau chaude, je veux m'assurer que cette politique-là est appliquée de façon humaine, qu'on ne fait pas d'exclusion, surtout aux enfants qui... Je ne sais pas si vous saisissez la direction de ma question. Est-ce qu'il y a un problème qu'on adresse et est-ce qu'on a une façon humaine de répondre à ça pour les enfants de famille?
Parfait. Peut-être avant de passer la parole au service, en fait, dans le sommaire décisionnel, c'est inscrit que ces modifications-là ont été faites dans l'ensemble des bibliothèques de la Ville de Montréal. Donc, on veut s'assurer que nos politiques ici s'harmonisent avec les autres bibliothèques pour que le comportement des Montréalais soit le même un peu partout. Mais je vais laisser, les services répondre sur l'application de la réglementation.
Bonsoir. Alors, je vous assure tout de suite que ça sera appliqué d'une manière tout à fait humaine.
Je crois qu'il faudrait parler un peu plus près du micro, s'il vous plaît. Merci.
Ça fonctionne maintenant? Oui. Alors, je vous rassure tout de suite, effectivement, ce ne sont pas des comportements nouveaux qu'on doit corriger ou auxquels on doit demander qu'une personne apporte une correction. Maintenant, on va commencer par des avertissements, par approcher la personne d'une manière délicate, mais effectivement, on fait aussi face, et c'est le personnel qui fait face à des situations qui sont tout à fait inadéquates. Quand on parle de porter une tenue vestimentaire qui est correcte, on ne parle pas de la beauté ou de l'esthétisme. On parle de se promener torse nu dans une bibliothèque, c'est pas adéquat. Je vous donne des exemples. Et effectivement, c'est vécu. Quand on fait des modifications au règlement, c'est discuté dans une table où il y a des représentants des 45 bibliothèques du réseau. Et là, on apporte des modifications justement sur des comportements qu'on constate le plus souvent. C'est très rare qu'on doit vraiment agir, c'est-à-dire sévir, priver quelqu'un de sa carte d'abonnement. Donc, dans le fond, on va essayer d'être persuasif et d'amener la personne à changer son comportement.
Merci. Faites avec votre deuxième question.
I'll give my second question in English, and I think it'll probably be redirected to Sonny Moroz. It's about 65.2, about Vladimir Kara-Murza, which hits close to home for me. I have a number of colleague pastor friends that I correspond with who have been evicted from both Ukraine and Russia because of positions they've taken about this war of aggression on Ukraine, and so I think we need to take this kind of stand. I like the wording of the motion, but I think it chickens out near the end. And I think that it chickens out given the courage that Vladimir has shown. I would like the result of this motion not just to be sent to Chrystia Freeland, not just to Prime Minister Trudeau, but to the Russian embassy in Ottawa and to the High Commissioner from Russia in Montreal and to Russian dignitaries who are here on our soil who need to hear what Canadians think about their war of aggression on Ukraine. So I don't know if you would consider that, sending that a little bit more widely.
Oui, Monsieur Moroz.
Merci, Madame la Mairesse. Joel, thank you for your question. I care about this issue a lot on a personal level because I got to meet the man right before the start of the war. We sat down in Côte-des-Neiges and we discussed about how cities are going to leave the movement in the future to destroy this toxic nationalism that exists in certain countries that allow dictators to be totalitarian dictators. I truly believe that what he's done with his time in politics is admirable. You talk about making it a bigger issue. I can assure you that I will continue to fight on this issue and find ways to highlight what he's done for humanity. In terms of sending it to the elected officials and all these different people, have already scheduled meetings with them. Unfortunately, we're not going to deposit it in the September Council, but in October, given the Jewish holidays and some of the constraints with getting some of their family members over. But we intend to have a lot of attention towards this issue because there are 20,000 people that the Vladimir Putin regime has put in prison just for speaking out against the war. And Mr. Kara-Murza knew the implications of speaking out and then going back to Russia. So he was very clear-eyed, and I want to make sure that people are aware of his struggle, aware of his commitment to democracy. And I'm going to continue to push on it. Unfortunately, there's some amendments to the motion that might remove some of where it gets sent. But on a personal level, I'm working with the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights alongside Erwin Kotler's team to make sure that this gets the attention it deserves after he was made only the 7th person in the world to receive honorary Canadian citizenship in June. So I'm looking for this to be a continuation of that effort at the federal level so that he's aware. Because for those who aren't aware, I'm going to take the opportunity to tell you that the most dangerous thing for a prisoner is to feel like they're being forgotten. And it's important to remember, it's important to highlight what he's going through. And unfortunately, this weekend, he was moved from his detainment place, and we do not know where he was put. So I think it's a timely motion, and I'm going to continue to push through every artery that I can to make sure people are aware of the kind of impact he's had and wants to have in the world.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Merci beaucoup. Donc, la prochaine personne est Sharon Friedman. Just before you go ahead and while somebody come and help you with the mic, je veux juste dire en fait qui sont les prochaines personnes pour que vous ayez un peu une idée de qui s'en vient. Donc il y a Zvi Filler, Ilana Sarah Grostern, Georges Christianis, Stéphane Novak, Michael Shafter, David Engel. Donc, je vais commencer avec ça, puis en plus, après, je vais descendre la liste. So, you could go.
Just before I start, I just want to tell you...
There's no before you start, you start.
No, it's about a conference. I want to invite everybody. There's a big conference in Ottawa. Oh, don't put that, it's not fair. Anyway, a big conference in Ottawa on anti-Semitism, October 16th and 17th. Erwin Kotler will be there, so will Trudeau and Polyev and Jagmeet Singh. So I'll bring your letter, Joe. Okay, here's my question. Mayor Plante states that she's not in the business of housing. She's told everybody that, yet she receives federal monies for municipalities to kickstart housing. She signed an agreement with Monsieur Legault to get blue bonnets for $1, provided she build the Cavendish extension, which she verbally promised to make good on that promise. If not in the business of housing, why has she dictated the cost of each lot, made restrictions, no cars, no garages, only high-density buildings, has now created a round table comprised of non-profit organizations for housing that's going nowhere. Her policy insists 20% for builders, they need to build 20% of social housing, but so she reneges on her own policy. How much longer is this mayor right here in council going to be the puppets for Plante and continue to defend her abysmal record on housing? She has completely torn apart the Black community, single moms at Project Chance, our own Jewish community with 1,600 people. She completely has.
En conclusion.
Okay, my question, when will this council finally take a stand here and get something done for the people of CDN-NDG and social housing?
So thank you very much, Sharon,
That's question one.
Thank you very much, Sharon, for always coming to the council. So I could assure you that I'm working with our services at the Ville Centre, with the OMHM, so Office Municipal d'Habitation, to make sure that we are able to concretize the social housing in the borough. So I'm somebody who collaborates. I think we've seen in the past what non-collaboration, where it brings us. So I'm somebody who...
Where's the housing, please?
So Sharon, if you want to ask questions, it's because you want answers, you need to let me answer.
Well...
Okay? So I'm going to continue by saying that I'm somebody who collaborates. I'm that type of mayor. So what I'm doing is that I'm working with the Ville Centre on the hippodrome. Within the next the next few weeks, people will be able to know what exactly we're going to be building at the hippodrome. In terms of social housing, I met with the Director General of the OMHM to ask her exactly where every of our projects were, what were the different blockage, to make sure that we go with every project to make sure that we're able to work towards unblocking it. Every project is particular. If I take the example of the housing on Walkley, for example, we having this discussion, we understand that because of the agreement between the federal and the provincial, we cannot start building there before 2025. This is not Mayor Plante. This is the federal and the provincial agreement regarding how we could use the money to build, to rebuild housing on Walkley, for example. So we're going through every project like this to make sure that it moves forward. There's projects that we're able to move forward this year. We're really happy about that, and we're going to continue to work towards that collaboratively. Your next question.
My next question is for Sonny Moreau.
All right.
It is amazing how Mayor Plante can easily obtain $36 billion from Monsieur Legault to build East End Metro's going nowhere, can get $1.6 million from Roberge for useless, ugly stickers to promote French in a predominantly immigrant areas that are just struggling to survive, let alone speak French. How can Mayor Plante get all this money from Legault for unurgent needs, but obtain nothing in money for housing that is the most desperate need in all of Canada and very desperate in our own backyard? Is it her indifference? More interested in all her budget for bike paths and doing nothing for housing? Sonny, could you please answer to this?
Oui, Monsieur Moreau.
Merci, Madame la Mairesse. Sharon, thank you for your question. It's a difficult question. Unfortunately, there's agreements that money comes out from that had other priorities, like the mayor was describing, where you couldn't necessarily demolish a building with the funds that are available, and the city rarely commits excess money that they have available towards new projects in an unstructured way. So it's a learning process for me too. I'd rather be humble and be honest through this process, as it's only been 2 years, but it's been 13 years I've been in municipal politics in terms of paying attention, and there's still some areas that are very opaque about how things get done and where the funding envelopes come from. So when you're talking about where's the housing and why isn't it getting done, I can go back, and you're not going to like it, I can go back to the late 80s under Mulroney when he decoupled the housing fund from inflation. And since then, we've built less federally owned housing units, which means that the public land we have available has to be developed by private owners. And in this case, Montreal's used, I've lost everyone in the room already. It's something called GRTs, which are, there's organizations that will put together projects and find funding initiatives in order to mount these social and affordable housing projects. And frankly, there is no more social housing coming out of the federal provincial budgets because of that lack of indexation and the lack of new money going towards social housing units, because an affordable housing unit means a certain amount below market value, but social housing means it's stuck to the person's income, usually at 25% of what they can actually take in a month. And that is no longer attainable for new development, it seems, because no one's willing to commit money, because you get a lot more units of affordable housing with the same amount of investment than you would get towards social housing, and everyone's behind on the numbers federally, provincially, and municipally that they have to provide. So they're going after affordable housing units instead of social in the future, which unfortunately means that a part of the middle class will be left out of the housing market. Thank you.
Well, at the conference on
So Sharon, your time
I will
is
be
up,
meeting with the
so
Minister of Housing.
I'm going to
And
go
I'm
to the
going
next
by
person
friend.
to ask a question. So we're going to Tzvi Filler.
I'd just like to submit 2 letters to the Secretary of the Council.
Yes, you could go ahead.
There's enough copies of both of the
I think
letters
you need to
for
go.
everyone.
Yeah, you need to go back to the mic. Thank you. They're going to distribute that to the council.
So the letters, one of them is from the CPE on Plamondon and Westbury. The other one is from the community and the parents of that CPE. And it's about the topic of my question, which is the bike lane on Plamondon, which was recently moved from between the cars that are parked and the cars that are moving to the sidewalk and the cars that are parked. Now, that particular street is designated, that area is designated as a drop-off center for small children. It is that particular building, 6405 Westbury, houses both a CPE and a community center, which, if I had to guess, I'd say probably 200 to 300 children in there on the lower end. So, as a motorist, when I drive down that street, I am terrified because the cars are much closer together. It's a much narrower street. If a child were to dart out, I am scared that I would not see them in time to either hit my brake or to swerve. And even if I swerve, what am I going to swerve into? The parked cars? There's no space anymore. And there's actually a second hazard there, which is the fact that the cyclists are occasionally going by while the children are getting out of the parents' cars and being brought to the CPE. That child there actually got hit by a cyclist the other day. This is a very serious problem for the community. I'd like to know, Madame the Mayor, was a safety study done on this change? And if yes, can we see it?
So thank you. To change the side of the circulation of the street when you need to make it a one-way, for example, etc. That we do like bigger studies, but we have the expertise at the borough and at the city to design. Let me finish. To design to design the bike paths in the city. So we work with the people at the borough and the people at Central City to make sure that the design is safe. That's one thing. The second thing that we need to know is that oftentimes people think that adding a bike path increase the risk of accident, but it's actually data shows that it's actually the contrary. So I'm going to finish. So by adding bike lanes on the streets, it is proven that it reduced by 44% the risk of accident. And I have to say that on Plamondon, there were really major accidents that involve people of CDN-NDG. So that's why adding a bike path not only allowed people to use their bikes more safely, but it also helps for the safety of the street. And when we say that as a driver, we feel like it's narrow, well, that's the goal. Because when the street is narrower, the people have a tendency to slow down. So you asked me the question about the study. I answer. I'm going to let you ask your second question so I could continue on it.
Okay, well...
So we have experts at the city for that.
So they're the ones signing on the dotted line. They're the ones that, if God forbid a tragedy happens, they're the ones that get sued?
I mean, there's always a way that you could sue the city. It's not the individual who did the work, but you could sue the city for any reason.
There doesn't seem to be any thought that has gone into this. The near-hit incidents happen almost every day. It's ridiculous. But that's actually not my second question. My second question is about the bike lane on Bourrette, which, if you have to get to a hospital in a rush early in the morning, you're in for a really rough time. And if there's a garbage truck in front of you that's doing garbage collection, used to be when the thing would pull into the side to collect garbage, you'd be able to go around it. Now that the bike lane has moved the cars over, that is impossible. If you need to get to the hospital, you best hope that your emergency isn't a real emergency. Was there any traffic flow analysis done on the bike lane on Bourrette?
So
particularly around the hospital.
Yeah, Bourrette and Les Garés, right? So around Bourrette and Les Garés, so since we put the bike lane, a couple of residents have told us about what you are telling us. So we work with the hospital during the summer to do short-term change to make sure that, for example, the problem around that corner is that the parking of the Jewish General Hospital, people wait in line on Bourrette and Les Garés to go into the parking. So we made sure with them that at least that zone was cleared out, to give a little bit of space to people. But on top of that, so there's really active a comité travail with our services and the Jewish General Hospital to make sure to see what type of changes we could do on that street to make sure that it's safer for everyone in that sector.
So the traffic flow analysis is being done after the change?
No. So the same way that we analyze the bike path on Plamondon is the same thing that we did on Bourrette, but when the people came with when it was put in effect and the people came to us with those comments, people went on site a couple of times, like in rush hours, to see what is the problem exactly. And one of the direct problem was the way we managed, the Jewish is managing the parking there, so that we were able to improve that. But we agree that we need bike lanes around the hospital because a lot of people are going to work, coming from work in that sector. People work at the Jewish. It's not only sick people, okay? So it's un générateur de déplacement. A lot of people go there. So we need to provide them from ways to go with bicycles there, but we also need to make sure that everyone is comfortable on those streets and that the residents also have space to maneuver. So that's why what they are going to continue to work on.
With the movement of the bike lane now.
So this was your second question. I'm sorry. Somebody from my team is behind you if you need to talk more about this, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ilana Sarah Grostern.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much, Gracia and Despina, for showing up at my house the other night. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, I was in the bath and didn't have my phone, so I didn't get my husband's text to let me know you were there. Otherwise, I would have had a lot of questions. Also, we're well aware of your approach to the July 13 events, and respectfully, there's a lot of lip service involved and not a whole lot of action and not a whole lot of commitment to the victims of the flood. So my question to you is, for all the flood victims who are out thousands of dollars, either because they were underinsured, like many homeowners, or because they were displaced and lost everything, what will you be doing for us between now and when the city fixes a very long-standing historical problem? We can claim climate change, however, we have a very thorough history of the area and all the flooding dating back to the 20s. So this has happened before, it will happen again. The city used to take responsibility and no longer does. So how are you going to help us in the meantime? So as I said, we have been working, but it's not something there's no easy fix. And I need to be really honest with all of you, there's no easy fix for that. What needs to be done, it's better planning of the whole city, but us here, we're going to work on CDN-NDG. So it's a better planning of the infrastructure needed to be able to absorb the amount of water that we receive that day. So going door to door, I ask people, so what exactly would you want me to do right now? And some of the people said, well, you know, we're paying a lot of money. So I said, so if I would commit money to people who lost things that day, I would have to take that money from the taxes. And it's not something that is sustainable. So that's why I say it's not an easy fix. There's many things that needs to work on. There's going to be the Sommet de la Fiscalité this week at the city. It's something that we need to talk with the province. And I spoke about it to our MPs and MNAs, because we cannot leave those things solely to the cities, because the only way for us to get money and to help the citizens is through the taxes that we get from you, from your houses. And this, it's not sustainable anymore. So we've been, I know it seems really far from everyone when we talk about climate change, but climate change is very real, and this is one of the impacts. So we need to adapt. I mean, we should have adapted our infrastructures many years ago, honestly, but now that but we're putting the money now, we're planning the things right now, and it didn't start yesterday, but the city is planning to make sure that we become more resilient as a city. Our administration, they worked on that a lot since they were elected in 2017. We are continuing that, but we're seeing the effects more and more intense. And I understand why people are coming to see me. I'm the direct contact, and we're going to continue to work and make sure that it stays a priority, but there's no easy fix. There's no easy fix. Okay, that wasn't my question, but thanks for that answer again. Second question is, do you know that Westmore is falling in and has been covered in cones and parking and barricades since right after the flooding when the street exploded? You've been doing major work in the area, including a massive clean out of all the catch basins. We have records, thanks to our citizens, of all the work that's been done, despite the claim that the catch basins were all in good shape. In the meantime, Westmore has been sinking for years, and it's seriously dangerous right now. When will Westmore be fixed?
So I need to handle the question to your services. Il y a des travaux si je comprends bien, I'm sorry, I need to clarify. Donc, il y a des travaux sur Westmore en ce moment?
No,
Sinking, what do you mean?
There's work everywhere else. Westmore had a geyser burst out from the middle of the street during the July 13th. There are 3 sinkholes on the street, the city covered with cones and barricades. Work has been done everywhere else. There was a geyser that opened up from a sinkhole on my street. You're ripping up Fielding and making a mess of the bus traffic and replacing all the sewers there. It's lovely, but Westmore is actually, their car is going to fall in.
Donc, je vais laisser les services répondre pour Westmore s'ils ont une réponse. Je veux juste clarifier, il faut, like, we cannot mix things here. So the works on Fielding has been planned way before because it needs to be fixed. So everything is not related to the July 13 flood. So I just want to clarify that. I'm really happy that Fielding is being done. But regarding Westmore, Monsieur Plante, est-ce que vous avez des précisions?
Non, j'ai pas vraiment de précision, mais si je comprends, so what you're telling us is that on Westmore, there's some like sinkholes with cones on it, or?
There are 3 consecutive sinkholes.
Okay.
The city placed cones, I believe, the 14th or the 15th, I'm not sure when. They've done work on every other sinkhole in the area, but this entire block between Chester and Fielding is falling in. I don't know.
Okay. Well, we can check. Honestly, I don't have the information tonight, but we can check to see what's going on there on Westmore, specifically for those 3 sinkholes. And see.
That'd be great, because it's a very long-standing issue and extremely obvious. Thank you.
Donc, la prochaine personne est Georges Christianis.
In the last council meeting, Mayor Garcia was asked by a resident, what gives Project Montreal the right to construct bike paths without properly consulting the residents? Mayor Garcia responded by saying, we won the election, and that gives us the right. Mayor Garcia is correct. Project Montreal did win the election, but there is a problem with her response. There is going to be another election in 2025. If she and her administration keep angering the population of this borough, it will be difficult for them to be re-elected. Bike paths were added in my district of Darlington, even though in the bike information session that was held in April, we were informed that less than 1% of the population traveled by bike. My uncle lives on Barclay Street, where bike paths were installed in June. He told me that there are garbage collections every Monday and Thursday on his street. Before the bike paths, that street was wide enough so cars and buses were able to go around the garbage trucks. Now the street is too narrow. Every Monday and Thursday during garbage collection, it's a disaster. There are huge traffic jams because of garbage trucks. On those days, the STM buses get stuck behind the garbage trucks, causing them to arrive late to the bus stops, and people traveling in their cars become very frustrated. I'm sure that the same problem with the garbage trucks exists on many other streets with the bike paths in our borough. There's only one solution. All garbage collections in our borough should be done overnight, between midnight and 6 a.m., where there is little traffic. The negative in doing this is that there will be some noise in the middle of the night, but it's still better than having huge traffic jams in the middle of the day. But I don't think the noise will be much of a problem. There are huge overnight snow removal operations during the winter, which we all have become accustomed to. This question is for Mayor Garcia. What do you think about changing the schedule of the garbage collections in our borough to an overnight schedule in order to avoid these disastrous traffic jams?
Thank you very much, George Christianis, for your question. I really actually appreciate the fact that you're giving a possible solutions to this, because clearly we've been talking about what happened with the floods and climate change. For us, it's really a direct impact. A lot of people contact us for that, so we need to keep adding bike paths. But I understand that it's a change in our borough, and sometimes it's hard to adapt. So I hear your proposition. I think other people will disagree. So
Madame la mairesse, je vais être certain qu'on est en ligne. Je pense qu'on a perdu un moment durant votre réponse.
So just one moment, we're going to make sure that we're back online before your second question. So you could go ahead with your second question.
When I was younger, I used to travel all over Montreal on my bike. But every year, when November arrived, I used to put my bike away for the winter. I wasn't crazy enough to ride my bike in our winter climate. I find it irresponsible for this administration to encourage people to ride their bikes during the winter months. This administration has to realize that we don't live in Florida or in Arizona. We live in a city which has very harsh winters, and I think it's very dangerous and foolish to ride a bike under those conditions. It's absurd that bike paths are maintained during the winter in this city because very few people use them. This past February 7th, it was cold and snowing. That night I came to this council meeting and I asked, did anyone in this room come to tonight's meeting on a bike? The answer was that nobody came on their bike that night, not even Peter McQueen. I definitely proved my point that bike paths are seldom used in the winter. This question is for Peter McQueen. Since bike paths are not and rarely used during the winter, isn't it fair that all bike paths should be removed between December 1st and March 31st every year from all the streets in Montreal?
Sorry to contradict you, George, but I think I did ride my bike when you asked the question that night, if I remember. No? Okay.
It's on tape. No, you didn't.
However, I will now contradict you on, listen, we clean the snow and ice off the Maisonneuve bike path, you know, the backbone of the West End bike system, at least the kind of that part of NDG in Westmount, and people do use it. So, you know, it has been a successful endeavor. I see a lot of people using it. I use it. So I think the plan has its merits. We don't clean all the bike paths, and we have a clear difference between the two. It's clearly stated. We know which ones we clear and which ones we don't. So it's not, I don't think there's a plan to start clearing all the bike paths in the borough. I think we're still looking at some of the new ones. And, but I and many cyclists in NDG do appreciate that the Maisonneuve is cleared for the better days.
I'm saying remove the bike paths completely.
Thank you very much for your question. La prochaine question de Steven Novak.
For Mr. Moros, good evening. I just have a sort of a long-winded question here. Most corporations and municipalities use what is called best management practices to operate efficiently. A subset of this best management practice is the law of unintended consequences. And I'd like to give you an example. Say you have a street and you want to put in a bike lane. You would have a meeting on the subject. The administration would have a meeting on the subject, on this subject alone. And this is what you would come up with. First of all, you would consult with all the stakeholders before the decision is made. That is, all the people that live in the area. To protect the stakeholders, you decide either on a one-lane or a two-lane, taking into account the narrowing of the road. Either you change the, you can make a decision whether to change the road from a two-way or to a one-way road. You would consider painting crosswalks to protect citizens, and you would paint yellow curb lines to keep cars away from the intersections so that people won't be blocked from the view. There is a couple of other things too. You would have more police presence to stop cars from parking or driving in the bike lanes. So what happens when you don't do any of these things? Well, in this instance on Barrette, there was no real consultation. There was some consultation only after the fact. A two-lane bike lane was put in. What happened? Two cars can barely pass each other on Barrette. Encroachment into the oncoming is very, very common. Cars hug the curves to avoid hitting each other and hitting other cars. A car and a van cannot pass each other, causing one to veer off, sometimes into the bike lane. The conclusion is why has this administration not taken into account these issues? My second question,
Sorry,
Contractors who live on
Excuse me.
Bourret Park.
Excuse me, Mr.
Mr. Moros. Oh, okay, go ahead. Yes, sure.
Madame la mairesse, oui.
Oui, allez-y.
Merci. Thank you for coming. As always, to ask your pertinent questions. I'm going to give as a nonpartisan answer as possible because I feel like what you're asking is about the process. There's very little process under which a bike path gets put down. In this sense, we delegated to the center city to do this work, and through that process, it means that the borough kind of alleviates itself from a lot of that decision once we vote on it. My colleague and I, it's not easy in 2022, now 2023, to vote against a bike path. We're the ones who suggested Bourret to be considered as an overpass in our districts. And when we were given options, we were given with very little time before the council date of December 5th, 2022. I think it was November 27th, I think, that I got the email. They gave me 3 different options, and they wanted to know, the administration, what my suggestion was. My suggestion was to explore turning it into a one-way street instead of having two-way with literally the smallest margins possible that I've ever seen on a street in order to make everything fit. It could have been a one-way bike lane. It could have been a shared street. I saw today that in other Projet Montréal held boroughs, they allowed for a shared street with priority to bikes. And all they did was paint green lines within the marcations, which technically is a trial balloon within the Quebec legal engineering code, which we always hear from the administration is a limitation on exploring some of the, again, a differentiated approach is what we needed. It's west and east of Décarie are different realities. North and south of certain jurisdictions, they need to be considered in order for the project to be successful. So I'll end my answer in giving them the most possible benefit of the doubt is saying they wanted to do a good thing, but the best manager's practice in terms of painting, that comes from Center City, and they didn't want to coordinate with the line paintings. Changing of corners. We heard promises that they were going to change certain corners because they were problematic, because when you actually go and speak to people, that's what they talk about, that crossing intersections is dangerous because people don't make full stops, and there's certain corners where the stop sign is not visible because a high truck would block the stop sign. So that was what we heard when people started coming in and saying, not a bike path, but all these other changes to make my street safer. And unfortunately, we don't have enough police officers to have it located in every area to catch people driving problematically. So you can see once you take away all the options, you're left with what we got, which is something that a previous person who came and took their time out of the day to ask a question spoke about the lack of studies being done beforehand. We asked for those studies before the vote as well. We tried to get that information. None was available. Instead, they tell us that they use the expertise of professionals that they've hired. So that's as good as an answer I can give you in a nonpartisan way. And as I told you before the meeting, I'm still waiting for the coroner's report in order to say anything publicly about that unfortunate death of a community leader in our area.
Well, it's too bad that the administration hasn't listened to you. To continue on, my second question would be, contractors that live on Bourret, they park their truck and their trailer in the bike lane a couple of times a week, and they drive the bicyclists into the road, making it dangerous for both the bicyclists and the cars coming down. So there's no presence, there's no police presence or even traffic presence. The STM is in the process of moving the bus route because they cannot drive on that road because of that fact. I talked to the STM guys who were taking measurements. So we're going to lose the bus route there. And you can call it a coincidence if you will, but a woman was killed by a van hugging the curb because the road is too narrow. It's not a coincidence that a couple of days or a couple of weeks after the bike path was put in, a woman was killed and another woman was seriously injured on Bourret. Something that's never happened before on that road. So personally, I don't think it's a coincidence. And also I've heard that cars have been damaged by people coming in. The conclusion is that the administration have put in a bike path, slapdashed into a bike path without consulting any of the stakeholders or any of the people, and this is what's happened. People have been killed because of it. Thank you.
So, for the second part of the comments. I really need to intervene because there was inexact information that was shared, and it's regarding public safety. So I really need to intervene here as a mayor. So when that accident happened on Burette, we made sure directly to contact the SPVM, and it was made clear to us in the report that the bike path had nothing to do with it. So I want to put this out there so people could think what they want.
I am sorry, that's not true. We can hear from Hampstead.
Not true.
It's not true.
So it's a.
Not true. That's not true.
So it's important for me to say that we don't do things, we really work with facts and we work with our partners. It's really important for me to reiterate that element. The other things is that we were asked a lot about why didn't you consult? So we consult about the bike path on how we're going to do them. We did a public, information session here, so the people could tell us what they think that the impact of the bike paths would be in the areas of the borough where we're adding them. And we didn't ask prior to determine where would be the bike path, because for us, it was not an option for us to consult on should we make a safe bike lanes or not. For us, this is not a question. We needed a safe bike lanes to cross the Carrie, because there's 14 crossing of the Carrie where people could cross by car and by walk, but there was none where people could cross with by bike. And even though there was no safe crossing, people were crossing the Carrie by bike every day. And this is something that is really dangerous. So we had the responsibility to make sure that we create a way to cross the Carrie by bike. So that's why we did it like that. But we made sure that people were able to tell us what would be the impact, so the services who works on it could consider those elements when they put in place the bike paths. So it's important for me as the mayor and as the administration to clarify these elements. So the 40 minutes has passed. Je vais proposer...
Excuse me, sorry, can I answer the question that was directed to me, please?
Was it directed to you? But the second question, was it directed to you?
Yes.
It was not said, mais allez-y, vous pouvez répondre.
Merci, Madame la Mairesse. Thank you again for your follow-up question. I'm going to follow up with the STM to find out if they have the intention of moving the Burette bus lane. That's an important artery, and I don't know where else it would go. It would have to go into another east-west artery, which is already served by other bus lanes. So I'd be curious to find out if that's accurate and the impacts on the local circulation. And I just want to highlight, because it's not easy confirming facts, but we work with facts and we work with our partners, and following the promise of consulting in December, I literally spoke to every single resident, knocked on every single door on that street before the vote, and then went and spoke to them in January, at the end of January, because the mayor said that she would speak to everybody in January before the February council, and then there was no meeting. No, she didn't go in January, she didn't go again in February to the end of February, I think it was the 26th, because 3 people told me they met with them after I spoke to everybody on that block a 3rd time. So I like to work with facts, and there was no consultation.
OK, merci. Donc, la période de questions est terminée. Donc, je vais proposer avec Magda Popeanu de prolonger la période de questions. Appuyé de Magda Popeanu. Donc, je propose, appuyé de Magda Popeanu, de prolonger la période de questions. De 15 minutes. Donc, juste pour que vous sachiez, les prochaines personnes sont Michael Shafter, David Engel, Marc Perez, Carl Hamilton, Eileen Cohen, Maureen Cohen. Donc, Michael Shafter.
Good evening. I call Mayor Plante a great procrastinator. 5 years ago, she convened public consultations for traffic congestion on the DeCarry Boulevard corridor and another for maximum social and affordable housing at the huge Hippodrome site. She appears to have failed on both. Today, traffic congestion gets worse every year on the Cary Expressway and service roads, especially during rush hours, and most fear it will become total gridlock morning, noon, and night once the huge Royal Mount Shopping Hotel and Entertainment Complex opens for business. And many, unfortunately, will continue to avoid the Cary by passing through residential streets of Snowden, Côte-Neige, TMR, and Ville Saint-Laurent to get to where they're going, and passing schools and parks along the way. I offer solutions to help partially. 1. Widen Jockey Road, originally built for horses, running parallel to the Hippodrome, so it is not a bottleneck between the Cary-Jean Talon intersection and Devonshire Road and TMR. It will necessitate taking a slice of land from the Hippodrome. 2. Remove the express bus lane on the south side of Côte-Liesse, east of Cavendish, because the highway needs maximum shared lanes for buses, cars, trucks, and 60-foot tractor trailers headed to the narrow Cary Boulevard and elevated Metropolitan. Prohibit police giving out tickets in rush hour, backing up traffic an extra mile, and please, my manager, Stephen Plant, take a helicopter ride with Rick Lechner. It'll be an education on what to do.
So what is your question, please?
For you, Mayor Grazia, would you support Montreal taking legal action against Quebec for delays in receiving infrastructure funding for the Hippodrome, an amount never publicized, possibly never estimated? I don't even know if it's $100 million or more. We cannot afford to wait another 5 years for maximum social and affordable housing on land we own, or be squeezed out of our 50-50 net profit sharing cost of foreclosure for non-development. A yes or no answer will suffice. Would you support a legal contestation with Montreal, like has been taken by so many other organizations?
I cannot answer that question. I cannot answer that question for Montreal. Is Montreal going to sue Quebec? Honestly,
support? I just said, would you support?
I cannot answer. I don't know. I don't know if it even makes sense in the governance of a province with a city. The cities are creatures of province, so can the city even sue the province? I cannot answer your question.
Mayor Plante will tell. Okay. Great answer. Thank you. Sunny Miraz, would you be in favor of providing bilingual services for all 180,000 constituents equally in our borough? No one can afford to make costly errors due to lack of communication. Are you in favor?
Thank you for the question, and as always for coming to council. It's a pretty simple answer. If it's cost prohibitive, it might be difficult, but if I had the political ability to make these decisions, I would make bilingual services available at the BAM. Anywhere where the borough interacts with the citizens on urgent matters, that information should be available in English and French. And I'll go even further because I'm somebody who looks at comparative examples across other jurisdictions, and if anyone wants to pull out their phone right now and go on toronto.ca, you can get everything that's written there in 55 different languages in the click of a button. And I think that we've reached a point, even though Quebec has a problem with paper, that we can use technology to solve some of these complicated linguistic problems in order to deliver services as best as possible. Thank you.
Wow, let's do it.
Thank you very much. David Engel.
Thank you. My question is to Sunny. McDonald Park is a very big park, and I think we should put up a monument to a very historical figure. And the person I'm thinking about is very famous because this person's name is Hitler. And I think we should really think about it. Because in that park, why don't you let me finish, ma'am? I've lost family at the Holocaust. Would you please let me finish?
Sir, this is really something sensitive to all of us. Can you just please clarify your intentions?
Sorry, ma'am?
Can you please clarify your intentions? What is the question?
My question is, there's a monument in McDonald Park. That monument is to Queen Isabella of Spain. And she was responsible for the Spanish Inquisition. Why is that monument still up there? Or, better yet, why don't you put up a plaque to explain what Queen Isabella is really famous for? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, asking your question, David. I've received your many correspondence, and I appreciate Shlomi's as well, in order to encourage the borough to examine removing this. I don't know if I would call it a monument. I would say it was a public affairs strategy by the Franco administration in the 50s in order to promote Spanish history and attach it to its colonial past, something that we've very much moved past, both in Montreal and in a lot of developed countries. It's hard navigating. I explained earlier that I'm still learning a lot of these processes. First, when you first informed me about this issue, I went downtown thinking that this is a naming issue, but it's really all in the borough. And I assure you that in the next few months, you'll receive a follow-up in order to give you a hard date about when that will be removed so that we could no longer have a flower garden next to an epitaph of somebody who killed many Jews and is a symbol of a past era.
Well, I've got a simple way of doing it. I have a sledgehammer at home. I can take it down in 10 minutes rather than waiting 24 months.
You've said much clearer statements to me before about what you would do to that monument, and I really appreciate your patience with both myself and the administration in order to do this in a civil manner and maybe allow the community to learn something about why that was there and what should be there in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. La prochaine personne est Mark Perez, pardon.
Hello. I'd like to thank you all for the well wishes that you said in your opening speeches. The task force launched a lawsuit challenging Bill 96 on May 31st, 2023, and both the Attorney General of Quebec and Canada have been served. We serve the Quebec government because Bill, now Law 96, is blatantly unconstitutional, and we served the federal government because they have failed to defend our constitutional rights and allowed Bill 96 to go into effect. Both governments have each assigned 3 lawyers to the case and are using taxpayer dollars to fund their defense while we depend on public donations. Utterly shameful for any democracy. Both governments expressed their surprise of our filing and needed a delay from the July 5th session and postponed it to August 29th. The task force, in collaboration with the Bridging Ethnic Community, the BEC, organized a car procession in the West Island on August 19th that was attended by 150 cars and 225 people. During our event, people came up to me sharing their horror stories about how Bill 96 has negatively affected their daily life and being denied to receive services in English. We all heard about the elderly woman who called the ramp queue and was hung up for asking for information in English. Today on CGAD, a mother called to share the horror of how Bill 96 at the SAAQ. Her daughter, who needed to pass a driving exam, was told that her examiner could not speak to her in English. The citizens of CDN-NDG talked to me about how they feel rejected by the borough because the activity billboard that are installed in the parks are in French only. Why are the billboards no longer bilingual?
So thank you very much for your question. So you know why. You know why. A bill was passed, and at the city, we need to abide by the law. We've been stating very clearly to the provincial government that, yes, Montreal is a francophone metropolis, in the middle of North America, but it is a place where there's historical Anglophones, and it's an international point of entry of this country, and we need to be able to provide services to the people that we work for. So this was stated to them, but here at the borough, we need to respect the law. There's many other things that happened. I know that some merchants also are questioned by the provincial government, etc. So every one of us, we are being obliged to abide by their law. So I understand. I mean, I see people coming here to ask us to act, but if you work pour contrer cette loi, if you work for that, you know that it's really something that is up to the provincial government, your MNA that are here, and your MPs that are in this sector. So we could cut and hear and ask all the time this question. But at the end of the day, the cities are created by the province, and we need to abide by the law.
Thank you. So the task force has launched a program called Tell Us Your Story. Anyone that has been affected by Bill 96 or denied services in English should visit www.thetaskforce.ca and share their story with us. The task force is a crowd-funded nonprofit organization. That means it does not receive any money from the government. People who wish to support the lawsuit can make their donations by visiting also the www.thetaskforce.ca. Would the borough of CDN-NDG give a financial assistance to the task force to help challenge this bill?
So we give financing to for one non-profit organization that are properly enregistrés, and second, two organizations that help us accomplish our mission at the borough. So that are in sectors that are in our competencies at the borough. So we give money for that. So if you're able to, how can I say, demonstrate that it helps us accomplish our mission, and we don't go against the law, why not? We could look into it, but we have strict rules to respect to when we provide money to organization, and the Vérificatrice Générale of the city, she's looking into those funding that we give to different organizations. So we need to make sure to abide by the law.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So there's like 30 seconds left to the période de questions. So I'm going to take one last question en présence, Carl Hamilton. And then we're going to have to go to the written questions online before we come back to, if there's time, to the questions that are here in public. Donc, Carl Hamilton, allez-y.
Good evening. In June, the Sœurs de la Congrégation de Notre-Dame announced that their Villa Maria property will be put up for sale. The sale will only take effect in 2030. The 21-hectare domain comprises 5 buildings, including the private schools Villa Maria and Marianopolis. The latter's building and land, located in Westmount, will be sold to an NPO. The majority of the site, with its many mature trees, striking old greystones, and its verdant green expanses, lies in the heart of our borough. It is an oasis of stillness and calm. The estate's buildings and land need to be purchased and preserved by the City of Montreal. It would be a travesty if this property ended up in the hands of Devmont or some other private developer. In 2019, Shapem, a housing NPO, bought a former convent in Hochelaga Maisonneuve. The nuns, it was reported, didn't want to sell to private developers. I would hope the CND sisters feel the same way. Of course, the question arises, how does the city pay for the estate? In March, Mayor Plante declared, "I'm buying land all over the city to allow for social housing projects." She can now buy more to protect this emerald jewel. New York City has a sales and income tax. Montreal could introduce the same. Montreal has a 3-cent a liter gas tax to fund public transit. This should be significantly increased, and a portion should be devoted to buying and preserving green spaces. And finally, a 5 to 10-year property surtax could be imposed to purchase Villa Maria and other environmentally important areas. Mayor Katawa, is it the Borough and City Centre Council's intention to try and purchase this prime piece of real estate so that the vast green space will be protected and nonprofit housing and or educative uses can be established in the heritage and other on-site buildings?
Thank you very much for your question and the different ideas that you are suggesting here. So as soon as we heard about what was going to happen to Villa Maria, I had a conversation with my colleagues at Central City to see what we could do and what vigilant process we need to put in place to make sure that our intention of keeping this space a space that is for everyone. So right now it's a space where the public could go because there's a school. So our intention is to work towards making that place to keep that place available to public and to keep as much green space as possible. I cannot go into the details of what we're doing because I think we understand that a lot of people are watching us and what we're going to do regarding that space. But I could tell you that everybody knows here at the borough, at the Central City, that we want to make sure that this space stays for the people and that people could enjoy the green spaces that are there. That's what I could say for now.
All right. I'm going to go ahead with my second question.
Yeah.
So it might be different, whatever. Anyway, the most likely outcome is that the Villa Maria domain will end up in the hands of private developers. 10 to 15-story residential towers will fill the existing green gap between Marymount Academy and the current tall structures at the top of Côte Saint-Luc Road. The greystones will most likely be converted to high-end units. In the 1950s and 60s, corporations and the 1% were taxed at much higher rates. Restoring those rates and my earlier revenue-raising suggestions is the way forward. Our elected representatives need to stop capitulating to the interests of capital. Once sacrificed to private profit, any chance of this large estate becoming a communal asset and a magnificent verdant oasis for the benefit of everyone will essentially be lost forever. Councillor McQueen, this property lies mostly in your district. Will you vociferously and publicly, here at council meetings and elsewhere, advocate for the purchase of this domain by the City of Montreal? So
Mr.
hopefully...
I'm certainly interested in getting a nice big green space for NDG, somewhere in the Villa Maria lands. You know that we already own a small piece of forested land right behind Villa Maria Metro Station. It was the park fee for the project when the building was turned residential there. I forget the name of that building, the building that's between Villa Maria Metro and Côte Saint-Luc Road on the west side. So we already have one piece of land there, and I would certainly want to expand that into a park with all the children's park and everything. I also believe in closing the road from Villa Maria that goes to Monkland to cars. Obviously, keep it open for pedestrians and bikes. People going to the metro station, of course. I consider it somewhat dangerous that the cars come there and come out and have part of the light cycle. They make the light cycle more complicated at Décarie and Monkland. And my last comment would be an invitation to you, Mr. Hamilton. Is it this Friday? Yeah, this coming Friday. We are going in, the group that is doing the Guillaume Couture Garden is going to go pick apples in the orchard at Villa Maria. They got the okay from the sisters. I think it's 5 p.m., so you and anybody else interested in Villa Maria is invited to come and see the orchards up close.
Thank you very much for your answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Donc maintenant, on va aller aux questions écrites. Et puis, s'il reste du temps, on pourra revenir répondre aux questions qui restent pour les personnes en présentiel. Donc, il va nous rester Eileen Cohen, Maureen Cohen, Alex Montagano, Joseph Jonqueur, Torrance Smith et Oren Sevag. Donc, on va d'abord aller aux questions écrites, par contre. Donc, je vais vous laisser lire les questions pour nous.
So this is the first question from Vicky Embry. Abandoned alleyway in NDG used as an illegal dumping ground. Is there a way to discourage illegal dumping in our back lane? Est-ce qu'il y a une façon de décourager les dépôts de déchets dans notre ruelle?
Oui, parce qu'il y a eu un ordre, en fait, donc on va...
je m'excuse, je reprends avec la première question.
Yeah, please.
Oui.
Avec la question numéro 1, donc,
de
Jonathan Stein.
Okay.
Oui, s'il vous plaît.
Désolé. So it's regarding Benny Park Skate Park project update. Madam Mayor and honorable members of the council, I hope you have had a great summer. I would like to know if an update can be given on the Benny Park project. What work has been completed to date? Is the project on schedule? What is the schedule for the work still to be done, including, please, the construction of the new skate park?
Despina Sorias?
Yes, thank you for your, hello? I wasn't talking in the mic, so thank you for your question, Mr. Stein. As you know, you're part of you were part of a committee that we consulted in order to start thinking about that design. And the design process is actually happening right now. So we're finalizing. The first phase was really like, putting it out there, getting feedback. And right now we're working on the design process. In the next week or so, we will be getting feedback on the next steps. And as you saw today, we're going to be passing actually a contract to deconstruct the old skate park. So that phase is going to be done. So there's we're moving along with the project, and the plan is, and if everything goes well next week, once we get all the details linked to this project and in the design, we will be able to move it ahead by the end of next year. So that is the goal. Of course, things might come up. It is a project. There are, variables that we need to consider, but the goal is to have it done by the end of next year, 2024. Thank you.
Merci. La prochaine question.
La question est de Gérard Routier concernant le devenir de la ruelle entre le boulevard des Caries et Colebrook et Isabella et Dupuis. La ruelle a été nettoyée. En ce moment, c'est de la terre avec des flaques d'eau, donc de la boue. Que va devenir cette ruelle? Je souhaiterais une mise à niveau et du gravier ou planter de la pelouse. Ne comptez pas sur les résidents pour l'entretenir, ou asphalte ou béton, comme sont les autres ruelles. Merci de me le faire savoir. La question est adressée.
Sonny Morose.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. J'ai une réponse très courte et je peux te le passer, peut-être à le passer au service si on a quelque chose à ajouter. J'apprécie la question, Monsieur Routier, et que la communauté a sorti pour nettoyer la ruelle. C'était vraiment un effort communautaire. Il y avait une trentaine de personnes qui étaient là. J'ai apprécié la présence aussi de Monsieur Joel du Suburban qui vient juste de partir de la salle. Mais il était là présent pour une activité communautaire. Et ça ajoute la valeur. Et j'ai aussi reçu d'autres demandes, d'autres résidents de faire leur ruelle aussi, parce qu'ils ont vu l'effort communautaire. Ils veulent voir plus de communauté et plus d'efforts de nettoyage de nos ruelles, où est-ce qu'on marche nos chiens, puis on va avec nos familles, nos familles plus jeunes souvent. Et donc, dans cette ruelle-là, il y a un gros problème avec syringes, puis et vous êtes bien au courant, et donc votre question est très pertinente de qu'est-ce qui va se passer prochainement. De ma part, je vais continuer à être engagé à créer un effort communautaire à l'intérieur de votre ruelle, et je vais continuer à être là pour la propriété et à répondre aux courriels des résidents pour leur coordonner avec les services de sécurité publique et de prévention Côte-des-Neiges-NDG. J'apprécie les efforts de Joe Lambert spécifiquement et de Fred qui continue à faire du bon travail dans le coin, et aussi, bien sûr, du SOCONV, qui est la Société environnementale de Côte-des-Neiges, qui a mis beaucoup d'efforts. Ils ont apporté un camion pour ramasser tous les déchets, et je sais que ce n'est pas les résidents qui devraient faire tout ça, mais j'apprécie que toutes les instances sont venues pour améliorer cette ruelle-là la fin de semaine, il y a 2 semaines. Merci beaucoup.
Ouais, donc, si je peux peut-être compléter, c'est en français. Donc, plusieurs résidents, en fait, nous avaient parlé des problématiques dans la ruelle Coolbrook à l'arrière. Donc, c'est pour ça que les services ont fait un gros travail de nettoyage, finalement, de la ruelle pour vraiment nettoyer la zone et d'éviter, en fait, qu'il y ait voilà, des activités peut-être parfois en fait illicites dans le secteur selon ce que les résidents nous disaient. On a en effet travaillé avec Prévention Côte-des-Neiges-NDG pour surveiller la question des seringues notamment, et on travaille donc avec le PDQ, etc. Donc maintenant on est rendu à l'étape où on veut s'assurer que la ruelle soit animée, vivante, utilisée par les citoyens. Donc, il y a une corvée de nettoyage qui a été faite avec la SOCONV, un organisme où on a renouvelé le soutien financier. Mais pour qu'une ruelle verte fonctionne, les citoyens doivent être mobilisés. Ça ne veut pas dire que les citoyens vont aller nettoyer la ruelle, mais on a besoin d'une mobilisation des citoyens pour aider à planter, pour qu'en fait les citoyens s'approprient cette ruelle-là. Fait que c'est là où on est rendu dans le travail pour la ruelle Coolbrook. Et honnêtement, je pense que avec le soutien des citoyens par l'arrondissement, je pense qu'on peut vraiment arriver à quelque chose de beau avec cette ruelle-là. Donc j'ai bien hâte de voir la suite. Donc la prochaine question.
So next question from Jason Savard regarding curb extensions. The borough recently announced that it will be installing a significant number of curb extensions to make the crossing streets safer for pedestrians. Curb extensions are a good tool to improve pedestrian safety by reducing the distance they are exposed to drivers when crossing intersections. However, curb extensions which are not properly designed significantly compromise the safety of cyclists since they force cyclists to swerve suddenly into the driving lane. Following a consultation process with pedestrians and cyclists, the City of Montreal recognized this danger to cyclists and agreed that future curb extensions should be designed so that they protect pedestrians from drivers while not compromising the safety of cyclists. The safe design is simple. Provide a space for cyclists to cross the curb extension beside the sidewalk. Will the borough consult with city center officials to ensure that the proposed curb extensions do not compromise the safety of cyclists?
So thank you very much, Jason Savard, for the question. So when the bike lanes are being done on streets that they're already built or they're not being redone, we have to go with the design of that street. So that's why we do those modification of the bike lane to make sure that it respects the shape of the curb extension after. So we know it's not ideal, but we need to go with how the streets are made. But when we have the opportunity to do a bike lane on a new street or a street that is being redesigned or redone on the surface, the recommendation of Central City is to make sure that we adapt the curb extension and the way that it's designed to make sure that it's safe for the cyclist. So it's something that since the 2009 bicycle plan that was made, that was voted by the agglomeration, it's something that the Central City is asking the boroughs to put in place. So we're going to make sure that we stay vigilant towards that and seize all the opportunities that we have to make sure that we redesign the curb extension when we have new street put in place. Prochaine question.
Pour la question 4, le citoyen a déjà posé sa question à personne, donc on va passer à la question 5.
So a question from Harley Nadler regarding garbage collection composting. When will the garbage collection of public garbage can be increased in order to prevent them from overflowing? In the event that the co-owner of a condominium disposes of food waste in their trash, will the fine go to the co-owner or to the syndicate?
To that last element of the question, I'm going to ask the services to ask in terms of where goes the fine. But I need to talk about the pickup of the garbage. So if the pickup of the garbage can be increased, I understand the question, and for example, during the flood that we had recently, we increased the garbage collection because it was a particular situation. But I really need to be honest here, where the city is going in terms of reducing what we throw out in our garbages, there will be eventually in the next upcoming years, less garbage pickup, because we are working towards having more people recycling and more people do compost. We understand here in CDN-NDG that we're not there yet, but we need to all be aware that it's something where the city will have to go because of the challenge that we have with climate change and the environment. So we're working with the different population and the different neighborhoods to make sure that everybody understands when to throw the garbage, when to do recycling, and how to do it, and how to decompose, because the goal is to decrease the number of garbage pickup eventually. So that's where we're heading as a city as a whole. C'était votre question?
Non, c'était adressé à toi. Je voulais juste peut-être essayer de répondre parce qu'il a dit les poubelles publiques. C'est pas le ramassage des déchets. It's not organic and material collection that they address. The first question is about the lack of public garbages around the park because there are a lot of dog owners and they're overflowing with dog poop.
Parfait. Je vais laisser les services répondre concernant à qui va l'amende en fait.
C'est difficile pour moi de répondre sur le champ. Je vais vous envoyer un courriel je vais faire des vérifications. Je vais vous répondre par écrit.
OK. Oui, parfait. So maybe just to complete. So I answered the question regarding the trash that comes from people's home. Regarding the public garbages, we have a work to do. What we did during the past year since we're here is that we tried to add some gardiens de parc. Somebody could help me here in English. People who are in the parks to keep up the park. So we add those people in the parks that are really used by the citizens, and those people help us to empty the public garbages sometimes. But I agree that we need to make sure that we clean certain of our public garbages better. We need also to look at, should we have centre de tri, so places like in the garbages, a place that you could put your garbage, the recycling, and the compost. There's like operational challenges to that, but we are looking to that to improve the property of the borough, to improve the cleanliness of the borough. So yeah, thank you.
So next question from Vicky Ambry. Abandoned alleyway in NDG used as an illegal dumping ground. Is there a way to discourage illegal dumping in our back lane?
C'est la question de Vicky Ambry? Okay, sorry. So, il y avait une partie en français, une partie en anglais dans la question.
Ben oui, mais c'est la même chose.
Non, je sais. Je vais juste répondre, c'est juste pour dire aux gens, donc je vais répondre en français. Je vous remercie beaucoup pour la question. Je comprends que vous avez déjà parlé à la conseillère de l'ELA sur la situation, puis elle m'a mentionné qu'elle va venir vous rencontrer bientôt pour vous en parler. Mais comme j'ai dit tout à l'heure, je comprends que la situation est décourageante par rapport aux déchets. Dans ma vision des choses, justement, puis c'est un peu la même chose par rapport à la ruelle Cool Group, c'est-à-dire les ruelles sont vraiment pour les citoyens, pour les familles. Ça peut vraiment être des coûts arrière en fait pour les familles. Donc, on s'assure on a nos conseillères en transition écologique dans l'arrondissement qui travaillent à motiver finalement les groupes de citoyens pour avoir des ruelles vertes qui soient animées, verdies, etc. Mais c'est pas quelque chose qui peut être fait que par l'arrondissement. Nous, on est vraiment là en soutien pour qu'une ruelle reste belle, verte, animée. Mais il faut vraiment que les citoyens autour se l'approprient. C'est comme ça que c'est fait dans plusieurs autres arrondissements. Donc, nous, on est là vraiment pour pousser les initiatives citoyennes de personnes qui veulent prendre d'assaut les ruelles et s'assurer qu'elles restent habitée, parce qu'on peut avoir une ruelle verte qu'on décide, nous, de verdir complètement, mais si elle n'est pas habitée, rapidement, justement, il y aura des personnes qui vont peut-être se retrouver à faire des activités voilà, qu'on ne veut pas qui arrivent dans certaines ruelles. Donc, c'est important que les ruelles soient habitées. C'est pour ça qu'on va continuer à soutenir les initiatives citoyennes pour le faire.
So next question from Nocham Greenwald, danger bike lane removal ASAP. To whom can help with this concern? Friday, August 4th, 2023 at 9:10 a.m. outside 5000 Plamondon Avenue, my child exit a vehicle to go to camp and get knocked to the ground by a biker. He was in a lot of pain and very shaken up. The biker was in his lane. The problem is the lane was moved recently near the sidewalk and is in a pathetic place. Hundreds of children have to cross the bike lane from their vehicle every day by drop-off and pick-up. They are all in danger of getting badly injured. Please remove the bike lane and put it back to its original spot. This is about pedestrian safety. This could have all been prevented. It's very frustrating to see my child traumatized and in pain when this could have been avoided. I have photo of his scrapped arm and knees and ripped pants of my son. A response will be appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you very much for the question. And as I said earlier, I'm really sorry to hear about the situation that you and your child had to experience. As I also mentioned earlier, the reason why we are putting the bike lanes next to the sidewalks instead of next to the road where the car passes is really to improve the safety, not only the safety of the bikers, but also the safety of everyone. And as I said, it's not something that comes from what we think. It's really something that was proven that by putting safe bike lanes really add the safety of everyone on the road. So we're not going to remove the bike lane. It's really, we want to improve our bike lane infrastructures in the borough, not remove them. But having said that, I hear your concern. Maybe there's things that we can improve, but really we're moving forward with adding more bike lane in this borough and not removing them. Thank you.
Next question from Zinnia Dusaniwiski. On school days, there are 12 children, parents that assemble at the corner of Patricia and Summerled at 6:45 to be picked up by the bus for Edinburgh School, which arrive at 7:20. They are very loud, disrespectful of private property, playing on the front porch, backyard, touching gas meters, riding the fire hydrant, crawling in the garden, trampling flowers, grass bushes, and unaware of cars. I can no longer park in my driveway as I cannot ensure their safety when I leave in the morning. Essentially, they come for a play date on our property, and despite my requests to their parents to keep kids in sight and of our property, nothing is done. Also, my downstairs neighbors are experiencing health issues and need to rest. Could this bus stop be moved just 60 meters to the park on Patricia, 4856 Patricia, so that children can play and no one will be disturbed? It's a win-win. I have called the bus service dozens of times last year and this year, and no one has responded. Please help, please.
Despina Surias?
Yes, thank you for your question, Madam Dusaniski. I mean, the bus, I'm sorry about what you're experiencing in the cohabitation situation that's happening. In terms of the bus itself, it's not under our jurisdiction. You're talking about Edinburgh School, so it should be the MSB. If you do need to discuss, if you want to request moving it or whatnot, it would be best to speak to the school board directly. Possibly maybe call the school board commissioner or write to the school board commissioner with the issue to see how they could address it best. Thank you.
So thank you. So somebody, my staff will take your comments, but because the question was sent written, we could not ask the question publicly now. In presence, I mean. Donc, les questions écrites sont terminées, à moins que je ne me trompe. C'est terminé. Juste pour être sûr, il y avait une question de Arlene Adler. Est-ce que ça a été posé? OK. Parfait. Donc, on peut retourner aux questions en présentiel. Donc, so we're going to continue with the question with the people that are here with us. So, Aileen Cohen, Maureen Cohen, Alex Montagano, Joseph Joncoeur, Torrent Smith, et Oren Sevag. We have 20 minutes, so I'm going to be the one answering your question. I'm going to try to make sure that I'm short so everyone could ask the questions.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. I have two quick issues. One is on Queen Mary and Coolbrook, behind Jean Couture and the private parking later, there's an alley, as you know. Right beside the alley, just in front of it, and maybe 100 feet away, there's some no parking signs, which nobody observes. So the delivery trucks for Jean Couture and all the other commercial properties block the tenants and property owners' driveways. Because they run into the bank for 10 minutes or something, they're not able to they rarely get tickets. But these residents cannot get in and out of their driveway. If you want your ticket people to fill their quotas, just put them there and let them sit there for 2 hours. They'll make a ton of money. So I would like, a no stopping zone, I don't know, something so that these people can get in and out of their own property. The other issue, so that's my request. The other issue is actually the bicycle issue, which I wasn't going to address, but I hear so much about it. I'm all for fresh air and exercise. But as you know, these winters are harsh. Snow removal at the best of times is not good. I'm a health professional, as you are, Mayor, and I work at the neuro with a lot of C-spine fractures and quads, Montreal General ER. I heard your statistic about a 43% decrease in accidents for bicyclists. I think that's phenomenal. But I want to know about your research with an increase in accidents with children, with cars, handicapped people, seniors.
Thank you. So there's a comment and a question. I want to make sure this is addressed. Is it addressed to me? No, it's Monsieur Moreau's, actually. So, Monsieur Moreau.
No, I think, okay, it was for you, actually. But
so Aileen Cohen, okay. So
for you.
For the first element, I mean, we took note of what you're suggesting. We're going to see with the services what we could do to improve and make sure that the people can get out of their driveway. For the statistic that I give, it's not only that it decreased accidents for cyclists, it decreased accidents, whether it's cyclists, pedestrians, because when you add a bike lane on the street, it reduces the width of the street, and it makes the drivers to go slower. So it's not only a statistic for cyclists, it's really like a statistics about accidents.
Okay, but can I just ask another question?
You have your second question, you have 1 minute.
Okay, so if obviously the streets are already very narrow, and if you add the parking and the bike lane, I, for instance, was coming down Barrette, tried to make the turn right. The bus was coming towards me. The cars are parked. There's a bike lane. There are cars behind me trying to turn. I can't back up. They can't back up into DeCarry Boulevard. The bus has to back up into an intersection. Now you tell me, in the winter, if there was snow removal, a garbage truck, a fire truck, an ambulance, you tell me where they're going to go. Where's a fire? If there's a fire in one of those buildings, I mean, has anybody thought about those kinds of emergencies?
So for your second question, so yes, in terms of emergencies, so the bike path on Barrett and the width of the street is really within the norms. Like, we would not be able to do this if it was not within the norms. That being said, during the winter, the street is really narrower. In that part of Barrett specifically, I'm not talking about the other part of Barrett, but Barrett as the west side of the west part of the Carrie, west?
Yeah, but in many
Anyways,
areas, a
so
fire
my
truck
point
and
is,
ambulance can't get through.
we
period.
have to check if that street's gonna stay a bike lane with a bike lane during the winter. We need to find a solution. If we don't find a solution, we'll have to remove the bike lane for the winter. Because the street is really, really narrow during the winter. So that's what I could say
But
for now.
even in the summer, people have fires.
So,
And ambulances.
so that's, as I said, it's well within the norms, the bike lanes and the street there. So thank you very much for your question and for coming here tonight. That was Eileen Cohen. Now we have Maureen Cohen.
So, what it has to do with the garbage from the restaurants on Queen Mary, Hannah's Hut, the Filipino restaurant, Mozart, the new Indian restaurant, etc. And some of them know where to put their garbage, and some of them do not, such as Hannah's Hut. I have six cans there, or they're 2 blue, 2 green, 2 brown, and 2 another color. And they're all right next to my building, our building. We live right on the alleyway. And there's a big container there that shouldn't be there on the parking lot. And I would like to have that removed and put somewhere where, because the parking lot is for the doctors who work in the medical building, and there's all this garbage in front of the medical building that hasn't been cleaned up, and there's all these containers that are sitting right next to my house, our building, and it's full of garbage, and so is the big container, which you'll go in the back and see for yourselves if you ever walk around the back. So I'm asking for all the restaurants to be informed of where they're supposed to put their garbage, specifically Hannah's Hut, because there's a new owner, and if they could remove them from the back of the private parking lot where the doctors park their cars, and where I walk around the back. My fence is right in the back, and our building is right there. It's just not, and it's terrible. It's the medical building, and previously, like last week, all these cans.
En conclusion.
All this food is all in the back, and it's becoming like a slum, I guess is the only word I'm trying to say. And can something please be done about it?
Who's your question addressed to?
Pardon?
Who's your question addressed to?
Well, Sonny is the person who I walked around with, and he supposedly said he's going to come to the meeting, and that somebody's going to respond to your...
So you want to ask the question to Mr. Moroz?
Well, it's to anybody.
So okay, I'm gonna answer. I'm gonna answer. So thank you for letting us know. Clearly, we're gonna have to see maybe with a commissaire au développement économique to reinforce, the respect of our bylaws. But I also want to hand out the mic to the directeur d'arrondissement, so maybe he could complete the answer.
Well, actually, I just want to mention that. Since it's in the back of the building, so we are very aware of the situation, and we sent an inspector already maybe a month or 3 weeks ago that was in touch with the owner of the grocery store that you're talking about. So he was supposed to do a big cleanup. Obviously, it didn't work out, so we're going to send an inspector again, and we're going to follow up on that.
Okay, hope so. And, it's been our building for many, many years. My father practiced orthodontics right next door for 51 years. And now it's like, I said, my God, we have tenants there, we have people paying lots of rent, and this is like, it's just unacceptable. And I was out there with my lymphedema arm raking the garbage on the property of it's just, it's terrible. And even the people who have the garbage cans, they're overflowing. And even I don't know, it's just, it's a mess. And I'm almost embarrassed to say that I live in Snowdon. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Oh, be careful. So we are aware about the situation. We are working right now on a bylaw on nuisance, and it's something that we are talking a lot. So how can we make sure that, to help our merchants and the people who have commerce in the borough, to help them, make sure that the streets stay safe. We want to keep them in the borough, we want to work together, but sometimes, we need to send too many reminders to people to make sure that our streets stay safe. So we are well aware about the situation. So we're going to make sure that we reiterate the information to the people who are there for now, but stay assured that we are working on a règlement, on a bylaw on the nuisance. Sorry, I don't have the term in English. Nuisance, to make stricter rules so people respect the bylaws regarding the garbages. So there's a short-term and a medium-term answer here. Okay? Thank you very much.
Juste un compliment.
Ben, vous pouvez pas, M. Morose, vous le savez.
Oui, mais une des deux questions.
Mais vous me l'avez laissé répondre. Il reste 10 minutes. Oui. Et on a encore plusieurs questions.
J'aimerais juste prendre 30 secondes pour répondre.
On va aller à Alex Montagano, s'il vous plaît.
C'était pas nécessairement à l'intérieur des demandes qu'on a eues dans le passé. Je ne sais pas pourquoi je ne peux pas répondre dans l'addition. Point de privilège, Madame la mairesse.
Donc, il reste 9 minutes 30 à la période de questions des citoyens. Il reste 5 questions.
J'aimerais quelques secondes pour répondre à ma résidente.
J'aimerais qu'on... Donc, il reste 9 minutes 30. Là, je ne veux pas que les citoyens perdent le temps de réponse. Monsieur Morose, ça fait plusieurs conseils que ce règlement est en application. Vous savez que quand les citoyens disent qu'ils devraient répondre, qu'un intervenant doit répondre, c'est cet intervenant qui répond. Je vous ai demandé si vous vouliez répondre à la question de la dame, vous m'avez dit d'y aller. Donc, on ne va pas perdre le temps des citoyens qui sont là. On va finir la période de questions parce que vous connaissez les règles.
J'apprécie l'opportunité de juste être clair que ce n'est pas la façon que vous avez introduit les règlements. Vous avez introduit une flexibilité qui n'existe pas présentement. Je pensais que j'existais à l'intérieur de cette flexibilité en vous donnant la première réponse, mais sur le suivi, je voulais répondre. Mais j'apprécie qu'on ne veut pas gaspiller encore plus le temps des résidents en me donnant l'opportunité à donner quelques secondes de réponse ici. Merci.
Parfait. Monsieur Montagano?
Yes.
Oui, un instant. Donc, je veux juste qu'on ajoute, on était à 9 minutes 30, s'il vous plaît.
Right, I'm starting now?
Just one moment. We're just going to modify the clock.
Fantastic. Well, if Sunny wants to make an intervention, we could just extend the
It's not up to you to decide that, Mr. Montagano.
Okay, all right. Fair enough.
Okay, so go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, so I'm Alex Montagano. Some people call me Train Man Montagano. And as many of you know, I've been involved in municipal politics for about 20 years. And one of the major issues, cleanliness, one of the major issues, as well as the budget. And CDN-NDG has been historically underfinanced and neglected by the central city. And as you know, I supported Projet Montréal, not your last mandate, but the mandate prior with Sue Montgomery. I was up there putting signs because you guys promised that you were going to fix the problem, and you didn't. So I'm here trying to get CDN-NDG its fair share. Now, as you know, November 12th, 2019, I met with Sue Montgomery and Guylaine Goudreau, and there was also Hélène Rousseau there, discussed the budget. And we discussed ways in which the borough could secure more monies. Now, what's happening now is I'm going through a process of trying to understand the funding formula and how the money is allocated to boroughs vis-a-vis other boroughs. And what I discovered is that five months prior to that 2019 meeting, there was a meeting of all the DSAs, and Hélène so it represented 38 people. So they came together to allocate an extra $13 million to the boroughs for services, for extra needs. For example, one of the things that was in this document was finally the recognition of the fact that with a borough, with CDN-NDG, most populous borough in the city of Montreal, that you had this intensity of use that needed to be compensated. More people using parks, more people putting garbage in garbage cans, needing to be emptied more frequently. And through this exercise, there was $1 million allocated for intensity of use. 30% of that went to CDN-NDG. So my question is, what happened with this recommendation of an extra $13 million, all these extra monies for CDN-NDG? What happened to that money, Magda Popianu? Where did that go? And I asked Magda, so everybody knows, she sits on the executive committee, the most powerful committee in the city of Montreal, so that's why I'm giving you the pleasure to respond. Thank you very much.
I thank you very much, Alex. And actually, I want to say from the beginning, if you don't like an answer, that doesn't mean it's not true. Okay? So what I write in the letter I send you, I answer to you, so it's precisely true. So from the beginning, I will give a 101 cross, okay, of the budget. So, yeah. So the document you send me, it's a document was discussed in 2009, as you mentioned, to refer to the priorities at this time.
2019.
Yeah. Because on the link on the budget for 2020. So you have to understand, we prepare the budget for next year. We start in March. The board did it in August, September. The services, the department of the city will be like in November and will deposit the budget. And the document you send me, it's a prep document to prepare the budgets of the boroughs and was presented by the city, and each borough decide, oh, me, like NDG, Côte-des-Neiges borough, I need money to repair our infrastructure, because compared to the Ville Saint-Laurent, which is a new city, so the majority of the houses were built in the 50s. In Côte-des-Neiges, it's in 1920. So our infrastructure, they are very old, so we put more money in infrastructure, not in park, maybe less in developing urban agriculture. So we adjust what we name the RFA, la réforme de financement de l'arrondissement, which was created in 2015.
14.
15 was voted. It's written in 14 and it's voted in 2000. So it's in place from 2015. So it's not very fair. We agree on this point, and we work very, very hard to have a new way, a new method to finance the borough, because each borough has different priorities.
So that's the answer to your question?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat the question. What happened to the recommendations in this document? Again,
exactly.
That's it's the fourth time I've asked this question.
I will answer. So the recommendation was the same, and the share between the borough was different. You asked me why Saint Laurent had more money than Côte-des-Neiges concerning the
horticulture.
Exactly.
Yeah, they got 153,000. We got 10,000. Yeah,
it's one part of equilibrating the budget.
Right.
We took more money to repair our streets and to, in fact, to repair the infrastructure, the underground infrastructures. So it's balanced between, so the primary budget is built with the réforme de financement des arrondissements, which has different criteria. After that, to establish equity and to respond to the needs of each borough, we re-equilibrate during this time, this period, June to August, and we put more money in parks or in infrastructures or in sport installation, depending of the priorities and depending actually of the administration in each borough. And I promise you, I will send you.
Answer the question.
So, Mr. Montagano, there's 2 minutes 50 left, and she started by saying if we don't appreciate the answer, it doesn't mean it's not true. It's really a complex issue. We could continue to talk about this, but it comes down to Mrs. Sue Montgomery was the mayor. She was responsible of this administration. So it's really hard for Magda Popeanu, even though she sits on the executive committee, to answer what Sue Montgomery wanted to do with the money of the borough. But she took the time to answer a part of the question. So I'm going to move forward with the next one. Joseph Joncoeur. So the person left, Torrance Smith. Oren Sevag.
Can't believe I made it. I'm not going to take too long. I actually had some time over the couple of hours I was here to modify my questions.
Excuse me. I'm just going to ask Mrs. Sharon Friedman to stop filming. No. Yeah, it's all going to be online. We don't want people to film with their own. Yeah. Sorry, you could go ahead.
Thank you, Mayoress. Good evening, council members. Good evening, residents of Montreal who stayed here late. My name is Oren Sebag. I'm a city councillor of the town of Côte-Saint-Luc, representing District 1. I'm here to address a major concern that affects both our communities: traffic congestions and its effect in my district. I've previously expressed my concern and ideas in writing, but I am here today to engage in a constructive dialogue with 3 simple questions. Pour commencer, Madame la Mairesse, pourriez-vous me donner une mise à jour sur les mesures ou le plan que votre conseil a envisagé pour répondre aux problèmes actuels de la circulation sur Décarie? De plus, y a-t-il eu des études ou évaluations du trafic qui ont été menées récemment pour comprendre les causes et les solutions potentielles que votre administration pourrait faire face à la congestion? Finalement, comment le Conseil et la Ville de Montréal priorisent l'extension de Cavendish? Comme vous le savez, nos résidents et entreprises sont directement impactés par les délais de mettre en place des plans d'infrastructure pour soulager la congestion. Dans ma lettre, ainsi que celle de mes collègues, j'ai partagé certaines propositions qui pourraient bénéficier à nos 2 communautés. Je ne connais pas les raisons spécifiques pour lesquelles ces suggestions n'ont pas été considérées. Je vous remercie de m'avoir donné l'opportunité d'exprimer mes préoccupations des résidents de mon quartier. Je suis convaincu qu'en travaillant ensemble, nous pouvons trouver des solutions bénéfiques à nos 2 communautés. J'attends avec impatience un dialogue et une collaboration continue. Merci, Madame la Mairesse.
Merci beaucoup pour votre question. D'entrée de jeu, je veux juste dire que je suis en contact avec le maire de Côte-Saint-Luc. On a eu des rencontres avec le maire, avec une conseillère de votre conseil, avec nos directeurs respectifs d'arrondissement et nos directeurs généraux, où on s'est entendu pour mettre en place un comité de mobilité puis de circulation pour adresser les enjeux qui sont communs justement à votre ville et à notre arrondissement. Donc, je ne sais pas si vous êtes au courant, mais c'est pas en conseil qu'on gère ce genre de choses avec votre maire. On a vraiment un comité dédié pour ça. Par rapport à la congestion sur Décarie, je pense que vous n'êtes pas sans savoir que déjà il y a une partie de Côte-Saint-Luc qui est liée à Décarie. Décarie, c'est un autoroute qui a les voies de service qui touche beaucoup d'autres arrondissements et beaucoup d'autres villes. Mon point, c'est que ce n'est pas aux gens de CDN-NDG de payer des études pour évaluer de leurs taxes foncières. c'est pas seulement à eux de payer des études pour voir la circulation sur des carrés. Je pense que si c'est la direction que le maire de Côte-Saint-Luc veut prendre, on pourrait le regarder ensemble et voir est-ce qu'on veut s'adjoindre d'autres maires et mairesses d'arrondissement ou de ville pour adresser cet enjeu, mais je ne mettrai pas cette responsabilité sur les taxes foncières des seuls gens de Côte-des-Neiges-NDG. Concernant Cavendish, donc, je pousse auprès de la ville-centre. C'est un dossier de la ville-centre et de l'agglomération particulièrement, qui est nécessaire par ailleurs pour le développement de l'hippodrome. Donc, on veut s'assurer qu'en même temps qu'on avance sur le développement de l'hippodrome, on est en train d'avancer sur le développement de l'extension de Cavendish. Il y a eu beaucoup de discussions dans les dernières années, puis notamment des points d'achoppement entre la vision de notre administration et la vision de d'autres villiers sur, bon, est-ce que ça sera que des voies de circulation ou est-ce qu'on va ajouter du transport collectif, du transport actif sur cette rue-là? C'est sûr que nous, pour nous, ce qui fait sens aujourd'hui en 2023 et construisons une route qui va être là pour les 50, 100 prochaines années, c'est de faire du transport actif, collectif, en plus du transport de véhicules, de voitures finalement sur Cavendish. Donc, malgré ces discussions, on est rendu à l'étape où il faut faire des études pour aller au BAP, pour être en mesure d'avoir un tracé qui a passé les consultations et le test du BAP avant d'aller de l'avant avec Cavendish. Donc, il reste encore beaucoup d'étapes. Mon administration ici, on pousse beaucoup auprès de nos collègues pour nous assurer qu'on puisse aller de l'avant avec les études qu'on présentera au BAP. Donc, globalement, c'est ma réponse à vos 3 questions.
Thank you. I have one more minute to continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. Madam Mayor, so I'm fully aware of the committee that was put in place. I'm also fully aware, as being a councillor, that sometimes committees take time to get things done. And I've been one of those councillors that take action and like to see things moving faster on a more, I guess, accelerated pace. And that's why I love committees. I'm in part of many committees myself. However, I do feel that there's concrete actions that we can take to alleviate some of the problems in a more rational and, I guess, more effective way than a committee at this point, especially if we're going to share the number of times this committee is going to meet. I'm also going to add a couple of things on the study of the Carry. The Carry is a boulevard by the time it was built, it was already old. And so the studies would be to effectively understand what it does not only to the artery, but also to the veins going to that artery. I'm a nurse myself, as you, and so I'm nice. It's nice to do some analogies, but I'm trying to show you. En conclusion, I'm trying to show you that there are things that we could do to better understand the chronic issues that are affecting our daily lives in an acute manner.
Thank you very much. And there are things that we could concretely work on that table with the mayor of Côte-Saint-Luc. People need to know that that committee, yes, we don't meet every week because our services needs to work on the different issues that represent them, present a solution. So politically, we could decide how we move forward on it. So I understand that, we want to move fast on things, but being a nurse, I've been a manager in the public health sector. I'm really realistic about the time that it needs to move on different issues. If we could move quicker on some things, I'm going to be happy to do it. But my time here in office showed me that it takes time in the public sector.
Hopefully we can get our 2 nursing brains together and make things happen.
All right. Thank you very much. Donc, ceci conclut la période de questions des citoyennes et citoyens. Donc, je vais proposer, appuyé d'Espina Surias, une pause de 5 minutes afin qu'on puisse prendre une pause et puis revenir pour la suite du conseil. Merci. Des membres du conseil. Est-ce que des membres du conseil ont des questions? Oui, Monsieur Morose.
Oui, merci. Ma première question, ça vient au nom d'une résidente de NDG qui était malheureusement pas capable de venir aujourd'hui.
Non, je vais devoir vous arrêter. C'est vraiment en votre nom que vous devez poser les questions.
It's my question, yeah.
Parfait. Mais c'est important parce qu'on ne peut pas faire ça. C'est-à-dire, les citoyens ont leur période de questions. Ils doivent se présenter. Il y a une règle. Donc, vous ne pouvez pas outrepasser les règles délibérément pour la période des questions des membres du conseil. Donc, c'est votre question?
Oui, c'est ma question.
Merci.
S'il vous plaît, si on peut démarrer le temps. Oui, c'est bien important. Et s'il vous plaît, la prochaine fois, les leçons, s'il vous plaît, les envoyer en écrite. Ça serait apprécié. La question, c'est sur l'enjeu. Il y avait de la construction ce matin sur NDG entre Descaries et Marcille. J'ai rien trouvé sur Infotravail. Comme j'ai dit, il y avait quelqu'un qui voulait se présenter pour demander cette question-là, mais je le demande à son nom. Est-ce que il y a des travaux ou pourront-tu faire est-ce qu'on pourra faire un suivi pour savoir pourquoi c'était bloqué ce matin? Apparemment, ça a entamé des orientations majeures pour elle.
Je vais juste interrompre. Moi, je pense qu'on est tous des adultes autour de cette table. Donc, je ne jouerai pas à ce jeu qui est honnêtement très immature. Je pense que c'est légitime de dire qu'il y en a des règles de gestion de ce conseil. Puis je ne jouerai pas à ce jeu avec vous, à ce jeu-là, M. Morose. Donc, si vous ne voulez pas respecter les règles, on ne répondra pas à votre question. Donc, je vous demande de poser une autre question.
Je l'ai fait.
Vous avez dit que vous avez posé la question au nom de la citoyenne. On ne peut pas faire ça.
Non, c'est pas ça que je vais. Tu peux revoir the tape later. Just to reiterate my question, between Descaries and Marcille this morning, there was work being done without necessarily anything found on any of the online sites, including Infotravail, and when they called them, they weren't aware either. So I'm wondering if we can have a follow-up on that, or if anyone in the services is aware of that work this morning. Thank you.
Monsieur Plante?
En fait, je n'ai pas l'information. Il va falloir qu'on vérifie pour la rue Notre-Dame-de-Grâce.
Parfait. Je ferai un suivi avec le numéro de référence parvenu. J'ai une deuxième question.
Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres membres de conseil qui ont des questions? Monsieur Peter McQueen?
Oui, alors j'ai dit que j'étais très content qu'on avait nettoyé les jeux d'eau, tu sais, pour qu'ils ne soient pas glissants avec l'espèce de fungus ou slime là, qui peut s'accumuler. Est-ce que nous avons un schedule exact pour comment souvent on les nettoie durant l'été? Est-ce que c'est une fois par mois ou est-ce que ça va juste avec la température? Ou...
Oui, encore là, c'est le genre de question qu'on va devoir vérifier. Là. Tu sais, je sais que ça se fait, mais à quel intervalle, c'est pas quelque chose que je connais. Là.
Parfait, merci.
Parfait. Despina Sourias?
En fait, moi, j'ai une question en lien avec... en fait, quand il a eu les inondations, il y avait beaucoup de déchets. Donc, on a fait plusieurs collectes. J'en ai vu encore quelques... quand je faisais ma tournée la semaine passée, j'en ai encore vu un peu. Donc, je voulais voir, est-ce qu'on voit autant de déchets? Est-ce qu'on voit comme un besoin de retourner un peu plus souvent? Donc, juste un suivi de la part des services, j'aimerais ça. Madame la mairesse.
Ben, on va le faire, mais évidemment, ce qui est difficile, c'est qu'on comprend que les gens, maintenant, font des travaux de rénovation. Donc, ils les sortent de manière moins... Au début, ça allait bien parce que tout le monde le sortait en même temps, puis ça allait bien. Je dis, c'était plus facile à ramasser. Là, il faut rappeler qu'il y a quand même une collecte d'encombrants par semaine, qui normalement est le jeudi ou le vendredi. Là. Ça fait que, au moins une fois par semaine, c'est sûr qu'on va aller, qu'on ramasse là, les déchets de rénovation, là, ce genre de choses-là. OK.
Parfait. Merci. Monsieur Morose?
Oui, merci, Madame la mairesse. Aujourd'hui, dans la façon que le triage était fait pour les questions orales, les premiers les premiers 4 étaient des hommes, tandis que je crois, dans les règles, ça dit de bien altérer entre homme-femme, homme-femme. Je voulais juste demander, est-ce que c'est bien inclus dans les règles du conseil. Merci.
Non, c'est pas inclus dans les règles du conseil. Et finalement, il a été convenu qu'on ne faisait plus l'alternance homme-femme parce qu'on a réalisé que beaucoup de questions étaient posées par des femmes. Donc, ça contrebalançait. Mais on vous laisse le choix.
Merci.
Parfait, je vais me prendre un tour de questions.
Une autre question?
Ben oui, j'ai une question aussi. Parfait. Le 26 août dernier, il y a un article de M. Morose dans le Suburban par rapport aux travaux sur Descaries et Jean Talon, où, en fait, nos services avaient bien expliqué là au Suburban exactement les travaux qu'il y avait sur Descaries et Jean Talon, et le Suburban a demandé à M. Morose, en fait, qu'est-ce qu'il pensait de cette explication, puis on a eu une réponse. Quelques jours plus tard, un article du CBC sort et on dit où M. Morose dit que c'est vraiment aberrant parce que c'est impossible d'avoir des réponses des services par rapport à ce qui se passe sur Descaries et Jean Talon. Donc, est-ce que vous pouvez expliquer pourquoi est-ce qu'il y a cette dichotomie entre les informations que vous avez eues le 26 août et l'article du CBC qui est sorti par la suite?
Merci pour la question. C'est très dur de vraiment se repérer à l'intérieur du système qu'on doit appeler 8 différents numéros pour savoir si un permis a été émis. J'ai appelé le soutien aux élus, M. César, qui m'a jamais répondu avec un permis. J'ai même fait un suivi en personne au bureau pour lui demander s'il peut demander à M. Boutin, qui est le bureau du travail public, dans le rencontre sur le jour qui suivait, s'il pouvait demander c'était quoi le permis qui était octroyé. J'ai appelé Info Travail qui m'ont dit une affaire. J'ai appelé l'MTQ, ils m'ont dit quelque chose d'autre. J'ai appelé Info Travail à l'arrondissement, ils m'ont dit quelque chose d'autre. Donc, c'était dur les premières journées à me repérer. Et pour simplement répondre à tes questions, j'ai jamais parlé au CBC, donc je ne sais pas quel quote qu'ils ont pris. Peut-être c'était d'un autre temps que j'ai parlé. J'ai seulement parlé au CTV. Donc, c'est une bonne question, mais je ne sais pas le point de la question. Peut-être sauf de prendre le temps du conseil aujourd'hui pour que je puisse pas demander mes autres questions. Merci.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup. Oui, Monsieur McQueen.
Peut-être c'est la question pour M. Plante. Je sais que vous êtes retourné de voyage récemment, mais pour la place Guillaume Couture, j'ai bien compris qu'avec notre ancienne chef de cabinet, on avait placé une commande pour quelque sorte de jeu d'enfant. Je ne sais pas exactement qu'est-ce que c'était. Et c'était en backorder ou quelque chose, Global Supply Chain Problem. Alors, est-ce qu'on sait où est-ce que c'est rendu?
Ça devait arriver début septembre parce que c'était un jeu très particulier qui est fait en bois et on devait l'avoir début septembre. Donc, je pourrais vérifier là, dans les prochains jours, mais ça s'en vient.
OK. Et l'idée, c'est quand même, on va pouvoir le mettre là pour la fin de cette année?
Oui, tout à fait. Tout à fait. Oui.
Fantastique. Merci.
Parfait. M. Morose?
Merci, Mme la mairesse. Aujourd'hui, vous avez fait référence à garder le ouest de Descaries sur Bourrette potentiellement comme piste cyclable. J'aimerais demander au service, est-ce qu'il y a de l'argent déjà octroyé dans le budget pour déblayer le piste cyclable sur Bourrette? Et s'il vous plaît, répondez en disant pour ouest de Descaries et est de Descaries séparément. Merci beaucoup.
Juste avant de céder la question au service, c'est important pour moi de dire que c'est vraiment une décision qu'on va prendre en tant qu'administration de savoir qu'est-ce qu'on fait avec le déneigement sur Bourrette. Comme j'ai dit à différentes parties prenantes que j'ai rencontrées au cours des derniers mois, on n'est pas certain qu'on va être en mesure de le déneiger, considérant notamment les largeurs. J'ai aussi parlé à des organisations à l'est de Descaries sur la question. Donc, on est en train de regarder avec les services si on va déneiger cette rue-là ou pas, mais je vais laisser M. Plante répondre sur le budget.
Oui, bien, vous savez, M. Morose, la neige, qu'elle tombe sur la piste cyclable ou sur la rue, elle doit être enlevée. Donc, les impacts financiers ne sont pas énormes, là. On ne parle pas je veux dire, au lieu de passer, par exemple, une charrue avec une pelle assez large, bien, ce sera plus une pelle de trottoir. Donc, on ne parle pas de montants énormes. Dans notre budget d'opération, on est facilement capable d'absorber ces coûts-là, puisqu'évidemment, chaque année, les précipitations changent. Donc, il y a des marges, alors on n'est pas inquiet. Dans la mesure où il y aura des décisions qui seront prises là, pour être en mesure d'absorber les coûts qu'il pourrait y avoir, les coûts supplémentaires qu'il pourrait y avoir là, pour le déneigement de ces pistes cyclables.
Donc, juste pour clarifier, j'apprécie la réponse. Présentement, le budget n'est pas octroyé du budget de fonctionnement pour déneiger les pistes cyclables sur Bourrette. Donc, on n'a présentement pas les intentions de les garder durant l'hiver?
Non.
Merci, juste pour clarifier.
Oui, manifestement. Non, regardez, ce que je vous dis, c'est que dans les budgets actuels que nous avons pour le déneigement, nous avons suffisamment de marge pour être capable d'absorber les coûts du déneigement des pistes cyclables. Puisque je vous rappelle que la neige, qu'elle soit enlevée dans une piste cyclable ou sur une rue, bien, ça reste la même quantité de neige. Ce qui peut varier, c'est le type d'équipement. Parce que, nécessairement, la largeur de la piste cyclable n'est pas la même qu'une rue. Mais on ne parle pas de coûts supplémentaires différents. T'sais. Ultimement, la neige qu'on enlève, on la paye au mètre cube. Alors, le mètre cube qui tombe sur une piste cyclable, il coûte la même chose que le mètre cube qui tombe sur une rue. À l'intérieur des budgets que nous avons les marges suffisantes pour être capables de déneiger des pistes cyclables.
Parfait, je vais me prendre un tour de parole. Donc, juste pour continuer, en fait, sur les questionnements que j'ai posés tout à l'heure, c'est important pour moi de clarifier ces éléments-là parce que, comme membre du conseil, comme élu municipal, lorsque les personnes nous lisent dans les journaux ou sur d'autres médiums, les gens ont confiance en ce qu'on dit. Donc, pour moi, ça peut sembler une question anodine, mais le fait qu'on donne une information à un élu par rapport à une situation, puis que cet élu commente l'information qui lui a été donnée et que quelques jours plus tard, peu importe que ce soit CTV ou CBC ou name it, que la personne dise qu'on n'a pas les informations sur la situation, pour moi, c'est un problème. Je pense que dans un contexte où les citoyens doivent beaucoup se battre sur ce qu'on appelle, en fait, essayer de déchiffrer quelle est la bonne information de la mauvaise information. Je pense que comme élu, quand on a l'information, je pense que c'est notre responsabilité de donner la bonne information aux citoyens et au public. Donc, pour moi, c'est important de faire ce point. Donc, ma question, c'est est-ce que M. Moreau pense que il aurait pu agir autrement et donner une meilleure information aux citoyens dans le contexte des entrevues qu'il a fait par rapport à la situation des travaux sur Jean Talon et Descaries la semaine dernière.
J'apprécie votre question dirigée vers un conseiller qui n'a pas reçu aucune information de votre équipe, ni des services, ni du centre-ville ou de l'arrondissement à propos du numéro de permis, qui a demandé pour le permis. J'ai jamais reçu aucune réponse de votre soutien aux élus. Je comprends pas d'où vient cette soumission, que j'ai ignoré l'information qui m'a été envoyée. J'ai la même réponse et le même préambule que vous avez utilisé durant votre question. On doit utiliser les informations claires. Et ce que j'ai envoyé et parlé aux médias à propos, c'est clarifier un rapport de 2022 du vérificateur général qui disait que la Ville de Montréal avait une responsabilité centrale de mettre tous les projets majeurs, publics et privés, sur un site. Quelque chose que nos deux partis ont voté pour et étaient d'accord à propos, mais que votre parti n'a pas mis en démarche. Et donc, on vérifie le site sur InfoTravail, ça n'existe pas. Toutes les informations sur une page, où est-ce qu'on peut trouver cette information-là? Non, et j'espère que je serai corrigé, mais avec les réponses que j'ai reçues, les non-réponses de votre administration, et c'était pas moi, mais les journalistes qui ont inclus la réponse de votre administration en disant de demander au centre-ville. Donc, je ne comprends pas d'où vient votre question, et j'espère en recevoir un avec plus de rigueur dans le futur. Merci.
Non, Madame Papier, vous avez une question? Vous avez une question?
Oui, j'ai une question.
Allez-y.
Est-ce que je peux adresser la question à mon collègue?
Allez-y.
Voilà. Est-ce que M. Moros connaît Infotravaux?
8433777, je l'ai appelé comme 18 fois 7.
Je m'excuse, donc, je veux poser la question. Oui, voilà. Est-ce que M. Moros connaît qu'il existe un site qui s'appelle Infotravaux? Il a été mis à jour peut-être les 3-4 mois auparavant, et tous les permis de la ville de Montréal sont sur le site Infotravaux, qu'ils soient émis par l'arrondissement, par la ville-centre, par n'importe, ça se fait en temps réel. Donc, dans les bases de données, quand le permis est émis, le site se met totalement à jour. Est-ce que mon collègue a consulté le site Infotravaux dernièrement? Sur Infotravaux, il y a toutes les informations concernant la durée des travaux, la date de début, le type de travaux qu'on effectue. Et est-ce que mon collègue sait aussi que s'il y en a une manque de concordance...
On va laisser M. Moros répondre à la question parce que la période de questions est terminée.
Oui.
Parfait. Donc, ceci met fin à la période de questions des membres du Conseil. Au point 10.08, est-ce qu'il y a des correspondances? Pas de correspondance. Nous sommes donc au point 12.01. Donc, il est proposé par Despina Sourias, appuyé de Magda Popeanu, d'approuver la liste des projets à inscrire sur le bulletin de vote citoyen de la deuxième édition du budget participatif de Montréal, susceptible d'être mis en œuvre sur le territoire de l'arrondissement de Côte-des-Neiges, Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, et confirmer son engagement à réaliser ceux qui relèvent en tout ou en partie de sa compétence et qui seront désignés lauréats à l'issue de ce vote, sous réserve des disponibilités des crédits. Est-ce qu'il y a des commentaires des conseillers et conseillers? Le point est adopté à l'unanimité. 20.01. Proposé par Peter McQueen, appuyé de Despina Sourias, il est proposé d'octroyer un contrat de travaux à la firme Neolect Inc. d'une somme de 270 234,38 dans le cadre du projet de réfection du système d'éclairage des terrains de tennis du parc Warren Allman et autoriser une dépense à cette fin de 324 341,26 $. Est-ce qu'il y a des commentaires des conseillers et conseillers? Le point est adopté à l'unanimité. 20.02, proposé par Despina Sourias, appuyé de Peter McQueen, accorder un contrat de travaux à l'entreprise Lanco Aménagement Inc. au montant de 525 826,67 pour le projet de réaménagement du terrain de baseball au Parc Béni, phase 1, et autoriser une dépense totale à cette fin de 683 574 $. Les commentaires des conseillers et conseillers? Le point est adopté à l'unanimité. 20.03, proposé par Sonny Moros et appuyé de Stéphanie Valenzuela, octroyer un contrat de travaux à l'entrepreneur Procova Inc. d'une somme de 2 244 312 $ dans le cadre du projet de rénovation du chalet du parc Mackenzie King et autoriser une dépense à cette fin de 2 805 390 $. Est-ce qu'il y a des commentaires des conseillers et conseillers? Oui, M. Moros.
Oui, merci Madame la mairesse. C'est une opportunité de vraiment remercier les services du travail sur ce fichier ici. C'est un dossier que tous les résidents me parlent durant l'été. Ils me disent comment est-ce qu'on peut améliorer ce site-là, comment on peut accéder à des meilleurs emplacements de toilettes accessibles et c'est incroyable qu'il va y avoir 3 toilettes qui sont accessibles de l'extérieur et en espérant qu'il y ait une amélioration aussi de technologie qu'on pourrait les ouvrir et les fermer remotely, d'une place à l'extérieur, d'être sur place pour vraiment améliorer les services à cet endroit-là. Et aussi, je te dis que les groupes communautaires vont être tellement they're going to really appreciate qu'ils ont accès à vraiment des salles propres, des douches et un éclairage amélioré sur ce coin-là va être vraiment apprécié chaque fin de semaine durant l'été et on peut même imaginer que l'hiver et le printemps et l'automne, on va avoir plus d'événements et plus d'activités culturelles à cet environnement avec un investissement de cette grandeur-là. Merci. Et merci encore.
Merci. Le point est donc adopté à l'unanimité. Nous sommes au point 20.04. proposé par Despina Sourias et appuyé de Magda Popianou, autoriser une dépense additionnelle de 237 549 $ pour l'ajustement des honoraires de services professionnels en lien avec le projet de construction d'un chalet et d'un jeu d'eau au parc Coffee dans le cadre du contrat accordé à la firme Simez, majorant ainsi le montant de la dépense totale de 288 515 $ à 561 697 $. Des commentaires des conseillères et conseillers? Le point est adopté à l'unanimité. 2.05, proposé par Magda Popianou, appuyé de Peter McQueen, autoriser le versement de contributions financières non récurrentes à divers organismes totalisant 7 300 $. Des commentaires des conseillères et conseillers? Le point est adopté à l'unanimité. 2.06, proposé par Despina Sourias et appuyé de Peter McQueen, accorder une contribution financière à la Corporation de développement communautaire de Côte-des-Neiges et au Conseil communautaire Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, totalisant 71 680 $ pour la réalisation des activités table de quartier, conformément au cadre de référence de l'initiative montréalaise de soutien au développement social local pour la période du 6 septembre 2023 au 31 mai 2024 et approuver les projets de convention à cette fin. Des commentaires des conseillères et conseillers? Le point est adopté à l'unanimité. 2.07, proposé par Magda Popianou, appuyé de Stéphanie Valenzuela, accorder une contribution financière à la Corporation de développement communautaire de Côte-des-Neiges, totalisant la somme de 126 570 $ en provenance du budget du service de la diversité et de l'inclusion sociale dans le cadre de l'entente administrative sur la gestion des fonds québécois d'initiative sociale, Alliance pour la solidarité, pour protéger les projets, prolonger les projets 2023-2024 et du budget de l'arrondissement et approuver le projet de convention à cette fin. Des commentaires des conseillères et conseillers? Le point est donc adopté à l'unanimité. 2.08, proposé par Magda Popianou, appuyé de Peter McQueen. Modifier le montant de la contribution financière à l'Association des parents de Côte-des-Neiges, approuvé par la résolution CA 23-170-178, initialement de 5 847 $ pour le montant de 4 647 $ pour le projet « C'est mon parc et je m'y amuse » et approuver le projet de convention à cette fin. Des commentaires des conseillères et conseillers, c'est approuvé à l'unanimité. 30.01, autoriser le dépôt, proposé par Despina Sourias et appuyé de Magda Popianou, autoriser le dépôt d'une demande de financement auprès du service du développement économique de la Ville de Montréal dans le cadre du programme de soutien aux artères commerciales hors SDC. Des commentaires des conseillères et conseillers. Le point est adopté à l'unanimité. 30.02, proposé par Peter McQueen, appuyé de Despina Sourias, déposer l'évolution des dépenses et des revenus projetés pour l'année 2023 en date du 30 juin 2023 et l'état comparatif des revenus et des dépenses réelles au 30 juin 2023 par rapport au 30 juin 2022 pour l'arrondissement.
C'est un simple dépôt.
Ah, pardon, désolé. Donc, je dépose en 30.03, proposé par Peter McQueen et adopté par Magda Popianou, offrir au conseil municipal la prise en charge de la conception et de la réalisation des travaux pour le réaménagement géométrique de 3 intersections avec mise aux normes des feux de circulation et d'un passage piéton à mi-tronçon, appartements et réseaux artériels administratifs de la Ville en vertu de l'article 85, alinéa 2 de la Charte de la Ville de Montréal. Des commentaires des conseillères et conseillers? C'est adopté à l'unanimité. 40.01, proposé par Despina Sourias et appuyé de Peter McQueen, autoriser l'occupation du domaine public selon le site et l'horaire prévu pour chaque événement identifié au tableau joint au sommaire décisionnel et édicter les ordonnances. Des commentaires des conseillères et conseillers? Le point est adopté à l'unanimité. 40.02, proposé par Peter McQueen, appuyé de Despina Sourias, édicter les ordonnances pour permettre les braderies, les enseignes temporaires et l'animation sur le domaine public lors d'une promotion commerciale demandée par l'association Les gens d'affaires de Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, CDN-NDG, entre le 22 et le 24 septembre 2023. Des commentaires des conseillères et conseillers? Oui, M. McQueen.
J'aimerais juste ajouter qu'il va y avoir des artistes qui vont participer à cette vente de trottoir sur Sherbrooke, Moncton et Summerled. Alors, je sais que le BIZ-NDG a fait des efforts pour avoir à peu près 15 artistes qui vont mettre leurs tableaux, leurs œuvres d'art dans plusieurs vitrines de plusieurs commerces. So artists from NDG will be participating during the street sale on September 22nd to 24th. So coming down to Monkland, Sherbrooke, and Summerled and try to spot some of your favorite work, some very nice work from some of your favorite NDG artists.
Merci. Le point est adopté à l'unanimité. 40.03, proposé par Magda Popeanu, appuyé de Despina Sourias, adopté tel que soumise la résolution approuvant le projet particulier PP 137 visant la démolition de 2 bâtiments commerciaux situés au 7330 et 7380 chemin de la Côte-Saint-Luc et 5421 et 5499 rue Robert Burns et la construction d'un bâtiment mixte de 18 étages. Est-ce qu'il y a des commentaires des conseillers et conseillers? Oui, M. Moroz?
Oui, merci, Madame la mairesse. Honnêtement, c'est une question peut-être mal placée, mais c'est en suivi de ce que vous avez dit en réponse de quelques-unes des résidents qui sont venus à propos des inondations. Vous avez parlé de cet endroit-là qui a une... Je m'excuse, j'ai oublié le nom que vous avez utilisé. Un buvet? Cuvette, pardon. Est-ce que cet bâtiment-là est au milieu de cette cuvette ou sur les abords de cette cuvette-là? Peut-être la réponse n'est pas claire, mais
oui, je comprends la question. Il y a vraiment un lien en ligne où on mesure de regarder où sont les cuvettes. Je ne sais pas si les services peuvent répondre comme ça on the get-go, mais il y a un lien en ligne où on peut voir où sont les cuvettes dans l'arrondissement. Fait que je ne sais pas pour Robert Burns particulièrement.
Il faudrait faire la recherche.
C'est bon comme question. C'est honnêtement juste parce que je sais que des underpass à Côte-Saint-Luc, ça inonde souvent. Qui est juste à côté. Merci.
OK. Merci. Ensuite, donc le point est adopté à l'unanimité. 40.04, donc je donne un avis de motion annonçant qu'à la prochaine séance ou qu'à toute séance subséquente, il sera adopté un règlement sur le bruit à l'égard de l'arrondissement et je dépose le projet de règlement. Est-ce qu'il y a des commentaires des conseillers et conseillers? Oui, M. Moroz.
Oui, merci. Cette nouvelle avis a été très bien reçue par beaucoup de résidents qui, comme la majorité, je peux imaginer, des conseillers de ce conseil, ont reçu des plaintes durant l'été. Il y a quelques places que je veux clarifier si cette motion va avoir un impact sur les événements culturels qui existent dans nos parcs. On a reçu plusieurs plaintes durant l'été que les niveaux sonores, souvent, est par-dessus les niveaux acceptables sur des readers sur les téléphones. Peut-être c'est pas technique ou professionnel, mais ça nous donne un point de conversation de savoir si cet avis-là aurait une présence sur ce type de situation et est-ce qu'on peut aussi utiliser l'opportunité de clarifier qu'est-ce que les résidents devraient faire s'il y a un problème de bruit avec leurs voisins ou en face du parc. Merci beaucoup.
Peut-être, je ne sais pas si les services, vous voulez répondre à la question de M. Moreau. On en a parlé durant la préparatoire, mais peut-être, est-ce que Mme Gaudreau, vous vouliez... Je ne sais pas. M. Plante, je vous laisse gérer.
Non, mais Mme Gaudreau connaît... Donc, pour les événements publics, tout événement public vient chercher une dérogation à nos règlements sur le bruit. D'ailleurs, un point ou 2 points plus haut ou plus bas que celui-là, on donne d'ailleurs une dérogation pour l'occupation d'espaces publics et une dérogation sur le bruit, donc pouvoir tenir des événements qui produisent un bruit qui est au-delà des normes inscrites dans le règlement.
Cela étant dit, donc, puis ça, on en avait déjà parlé, dans le fond, donc, nous, on vote des dérogations de notre règlement. Cela étant dit, les demandes des citoyens et citoyennes au pourtour de nos parcs où il y a des événements sont légitimes. Il y a différents moyens pour eux de signaler ce bruit-là. Il y a, si c'est en journée, il y a en effet le 311, puis là, on s'est entendu pour dire qu'il faut peut-être s'assurer est-ce que les inspecteurs sont bien disponibles, etc. On a des agents qui travaillent dans nos parcs aussi avec les différentes personnes qui font les événements pour nous assurer que les citoyens ont en fait une personne à contacter en cas de problématique, en fait que les organisateurs ont quelqu'un à contacter. Puis quand ça se passe après 23 heures, il y a toujours finalement la police qui est en mesure d'intervenir sur ces situations-là. Donc c'est ce qu'on a pour l'instant, mais on a été sensibilisé à la problématique. On va devoir voir avec les équipes de l'arrondissement ce qui peut être fait en plus, en fait, pour améliorer l'expérience, la vie, finalement, des résidents autour de nos parcs et des événements. C'est bon?
Merci.
Parfait. Ensuite, donc le point est non, c'est un avis de motion. Donc, 40.05, c'est un autre avis de motion. Donc, je donne un avis de motion annonçant qu'à la prochaine séance, qu'à toute séance subséquente, il sera adopté un règlement visant à autoriser la transformation et l'occupation du bâtiment mixte jumelé situé au 5315 place Garland à des fins de garderie et déposer le projet de règlement. C'est le bon nom? Garland? Madame? OK, parfait, puisqu'il y avait un enjeu la dernière fois. Parfait. Est-ce qu'il y a... Donc, c'est un avis de motion? Des commentaires des conseillers et conseillers? Voilà, 40.07. 06, je donne un avis de motion annonçant qu'à la séance prochaine ou qu'à toute séance subséquente, il sera adopté un règlement relatif aux bibliothèques de l'arrondissement, remplaçant les règlements des bibliothèques de l'arrondissement et déposer le projet de règlement. Donc, des commentaires des conseillers et conseillers? Oui, M. Morose?
Oui, juste un suivi du question du résident qui est venu demander si les personnes spécifiques sont visées à l'intérieur de ce nouvel règlement. Vous avez répondu que c'est vraiment juste mettre à niveau tous les règlements à côté de CDN-NDG avec le reste de Montréal. Mais j'aimerais juste savoir, est-ce qu'on a l'intention de vraiment enlever des gens des bibliothèques ou est-ce qu'on va continuer à utiliser le même common sense, le bon savoir à l'intérieur de nos bibliothèques? Il n'y a pas vraiment une intention d'enlever plus de personnes dans le futur. C'est plutôt juste mettre à niveau ou est-ce qu'il y a vraiment un problème à l'intérieur des bibliothèques de côté de CDN-NDG que ce problème-là réglera? Donc, c'est peut-être un suivi sur la question de M. Cole-Peters, de savoir est-ce qu'on a ce problème-là existant à côté de CDN-NDG. Merci.
M. Plante?
Puis Mme Gaudreau, Sonia, là, pourra corroborer. Il faut comprendre que ce type de règlement-là est utilisé dans des situations très précises. Il peut y avoir des situations problématiques et on est très sensible à ce que le révérend Cole-Peters disait précédemment et on comprend que les bibliothèques sont devenues des troisièmes lieux, sont devenus des endroits complètement différents de ce que c'était à l'époque, avec tout le respect que je lui dois, où le révérend Cole-Peters fréquentait les bibliothèques quand il était jeune. Donc, tu sais, c'est clair qu'il n'y aura pas de changement dans la façon dont nous allons appliquer les règlements. Je pense que c'est une mise à jour. Je pense que dans certains cas particuliers, on avait besoin de cette mise à jour-là, mais c'est clair que nos bibliothèques vont rester des endroits très libres et très fréquentables.
Merci infiniment.
Parfait. Donc, on est au point 40.07. Donc, proposé par Magda Popianou, appuyé de Despina Sourias, accorder une dérogation à l'article 340 du règlement d'urbanisme de l'arrondissement afin de permettre une dépendance en cours avant pour un bâtiment institutionnel jumelé situé au 5750 rue Lavoie. Des commentaires des conseillers et conseillers? Le point est adopté à l'unanimité. Au point 40.08, proposé par Peter McQueen, appuyé de Despina Sourias, accorder une dérogation à l'interdiction de convertir en copropriété divise pour l'immeuble situé au 2045 et 2047 avenue Monroe. Des commentaires des conseillers et conseillers? Le point est adopté à l'unanimité. Point 51.01, proposé par Despina Sourias, appuyé par Magda Popianou, demander au ministre de la Justice de désigner Mme Gracia Kaseki-Katawa, Mme Despina Sourias, M. Sonny Morose et Mme Stéphanie Valenzuela pour agir à titre de célébrants compétents pour des mariages et unions civiles sur le territoire de la Ville de Montréal. Des commentaires des conseillers et conseillers? Oui, M. Morose?
Ah oui, juste pour un moment, c'est très cool d'être capable de faire ça pour nos amis puis nos voisins. Et c'est vraiment une des choses qui me pique au cœur, d'être capable de faire ça pour des amis puis des voisins. Et j'espère que tout le monde va prendre toutes les opportunités de faire ça. C'est vraiment une belle expérience que j'anticipe fortement. Merci.
Parfait. Soyez prêts. Il va y avoir plein de mariages. Voilà, 60.01. Pardon, oui. Donc, je dépose les rapports faisant état des décisions prises par tout le personnel dans l'exercice des pouvoirs qui leur sont délégués pour les mois de juin et de juillet 2023, ainsi que les dépenses par carte de crédit pour le mois de juin 2023. Des commentaires des conseillers et conseillers? Le point, en fait, c'est un dépôt. Et puis, donc, nous en sommes maintenant aux motions déposées par les conseillers et conseillers. La première motion, je vais demander à Mme Stéphanie Valenzuela de nous la présenter, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la mairesse. Donc, la motion que je présente, en fait, j'ai un peu expliqué la motion au début durant mon mot d'élu. Mais en fait, la motion s'appelle « Motion pour réduire les impacts sonores et visuels du REM de l'Ouest auprès des résidents et des commerçants, spécifiquement de mon secteur, du district de Darlington. » Et évidemment, c'est appuyé par mon collègue, M. Sonny Morose. Vraiment, c'est une motion qui réitère, en fait, les demandes puis les préoccupations qui ont été partagées durant les dernières années par les résidents de mon district et aussi par les résidents du secteur de Ville-Mont-Royal. Évidemment, dernièrement, il y a eu une motion qui a été partagée par le conseil de la Ville de Montréal suite aux plaintes puis aux témoignages qui ont été partagés par les résidents du secteur de Griffintown, Pointe-Saint-Charles ainsi que Île-des-Sœurs. Je comprends que il y a eu des représentations au niveau de nos services dans les comités de bon voisinage. Je comprends que de notre côté, du côté de notre arrondissement, on essaie de faire ce que nous pouvons faire, mais en même temps, dans la dernière année, j'ai quand même posé plusieurs questions, puis j'ai pas pu avoir quelques réponses. Donc, c'est pour ça que j'ai amené cette motion pour simplement réitérer tout ce qui a été déjà dit par les résidents qui représentent le secteur. Je suis quand même contente de voir qu'on a pu trouver un terrain d'entente avec l'administration, que par la suite, Mme la mairesse va partager les amendements, mais je suis contente de voir qu'on est capable de travailler ensemble pour le bien-être de nos résidents et trouver une façon de vraiment bien les représenter, que ce soit l'administration ou l'opposition officielle. Donc, merci.
Merci. Donc, en effet, on a proposé donc des amendements à la motion essentiellement qui, en fait, précisent certains entendus et le contexte, en fait, de la mise en place du REM dans la Ville de Montréal et le fait que c'est un besoin, mais qu'on reconnaît qu'il faut s'assurer que ça se fasse en harmonie avec, finalement, la capacité des citoyens de jouir notamment de leur, voilà, de jouir avec quiétude, finalement, de leur résidence. On a aussi précisé, en fait, qu'il y a un comité de voisinage qui avait été mis en place, puis l'arrondissement était autour de la table pour le comité de voisinage. On précise aussi le fait que dans la gouvernance de ce projet-là, ou de la gestion opérationnelle de ce projet-là, c'est beaucoup la Ville-Centre de Montréal qui était en contact avec CDPQ Infra. Donc, en fait, les arrondissements, ça serait de partager, en fait, les différents enjeux au service de la Ville-Centre qui était en mesure de assurer finalement les discussions avec CDPQ Infra sur le projet du REM parce que c'est un projet majeur, vous le comprenez. Donc, avec ce que nos collègues proposent, on renouvelle notre volonté de nous assurer que des mesures soient prises pour éviter, en fait, les nuisances auprès des citoyens de Côte-des-Neiges, en fait, de ce secteur-là de Côte-des-Neiges. Et puis, on va transmettre cette copie. En fait, on a précisé à qui on transmet cette copie. Nous, on a la volonté d'être très concret, là, finalement. Fait on va l'envoyer au ministère des Transports, à CDPQ Infra, puis à l'agglomération aussi, parce que c'est un dossier qui touche plusieurs autres villes, pas seulement notre arrondissement, donc notamment Ville-Mont-Royal qui s'est exprimé là-dessus. Donc, ça va permettre à ces personnes-là d'être aussi au fait de la motion qu'on adopte aujourd'hui. Oui, allez-y.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la mairesse. Donc, c'est juste pour commenter sur les amendements que Madame la mairesse a pu déposer. En fait, oui, évidemment, on est pour les amendements, puis je suis très contente de voir qu'on va pouvoir l'approuver, j'espère, de façon unanime. Mais pour la résolution où on demande qu'on renouvelle, c'est bien beau qu'on le renouvelle, mais je tiens à réitérer le dernier comité de bon voisinage qui a pu se réunir était en décembre 2021. Et depuis ce temps-là, il n'y a pas eu d'autres nouvelles qui ont été partagées avec les résidents du secteur. Et en même temps, dans les derniers mois, il y a quand même eu des développements au niveau de l'utilisation du REM et l'impact du REM dans les secteurs où il y a un REM opérationnel. Donc, j'espère qu'on va tenir ça en compte pour nos représentations au niveau du CDPQ Infra, que ce soit à la Ville-Centre, que vous pouvez partager avec vos collègues à la Ville-Centre, et que aussi au niveau de la partage d'informations comme élu qui représente le coin, s'il y a de l'information qui est partagée au niveau de mes autres collègues, j'espère pouvoir le recevoir parce qu'au niveau de notre cabinet à la Ville-Centre, on a fait des demandes pour savoir les demandes faites au niveau de tous les arrondissements qui ont une station de REM. Et malheureusement, on n'a toujours pas reçu de réponse là-dessus. Donc, c'est pas juste pour nous, mais c'est pour tous les autres arrondissements que je partage ce commentaire-là. Donc, encore une fois, je remercie l'administration, je remercie les services au niveau de cette motion. Puis, encore une fois, on va continuer de représenter tous nos résidents, surtout pour moi, les résidents de mon secteur à Darlington. Merci.
Parfait, merci. Donc, c'est une motion proposée par Stéphanie Valenzuela et appuyée de Sonny Morose qui est adoptée telle qu'amendée à l'unanimité. Parfait. Parfait. Donc, on irait à la motion 65.02, une motion qui nous sera présentée par M. Morose. Donc, la motion est présentée par Sonny Morose et appuyée de Stéphanie Valenzuela.
Merci beaucoup. As I had described before, this is a real opportunity for me to highlight who I think is one of the greatest human beings currently working on behalf of democracy in the world. His name is Vladimir Kara-Murza, and in April 2022, Russian authorities detained him and charged him with spreading deliberately false information about the invasion of Ukraine, something he knew he would be arrested for if he went back to Russia. Because Moscow prohibits calling it a war. I'm working alongside somebody who I respect tremendously for his body of work, both in government as the Justice and Attorney General of Canada, and also as the Dean of the Faculty of Law at McGill. And he continues his work as the founder and head fellow at the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights. Erwin Kotler alleged that Kara-Murza was poisoned twice upon returning to Russia, after testifying in Canada about changes to Ottawa's sanction regimes called the Magnitsky Laws. The Magnitsky sanctions allows Russian bad actors to be sanctioned. It allows them to not move freely with their assets across country lines that have signed on to this. And it was Vladimir Kara-Murza that came to different places in North America to petition the American and Canadian federal government to make these laws permanent, which then became examples around the world of what we should do to counter a nefarious regime in Russia. I took this opportunity, yes, to highlight his impacts on Côte-de-Neige and what the Russian ambassador to Canada called an effort to, I think he said, hear your name called out. But that's not what this is, because there are 20,000 other people who are arrested in Russia for calling this war a war. And Vlad for Friends are some of the bravest people in the world right now who are using their feet, using their mouths to counter a full-scale invasion of Russia. And I agree with Mr. Kotler in that he is the personification of justice, the embodiment of the struggle for democracy. And through this action, we'll be honoring all those cases and causes for which he stood so bravely, which reflect and represent Canadian values. Now, just to highlight, there's also Alexei Navalny and Boris Nemtsov, who are treated similarly. Vlad worked for them, and now they're no longer free or alive. And we hope that despite his medical conditions, that making him an honorary citizen allows him a better chance of being extradited to the country where she is now a citizen, And we're hoping that once he leaves Russia, he'll come back to Montreal, a place where he stayed multiple times. His lawyer, Mr. Kotler's office is here. He's also a senior fellow at the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights, who's named after the first Canadian given Canadian citizenship. Raoul Wallenberg saved thousands of young people, young Jews mostly, from Europe and had them escape to Sweden. And he's a true story and the first honorary citizen. And there have only been 5 others. So he's the 7th honorary citizen after Malala Yousafzai, who was given it a couple of years ago as well. So I understand Borough Council isn't always the place to make these statements. I hope to, as Mr. Cole-Peters suggested, continue to talk about this at every other opportunity and to bring a motion at City Hall to make him an honorary citizen of Montreal. Although that information is not necessarily included in the final draft of the motion, I sincerely appreciate the work of collaborating on finding a final version of this motion that was acceptable for all of Council. Because Vlad is an example of Côte-des-Neiges too. His family wouldn't have met generations ago if it wasn't for the Russian Revolution, because he's a mix of what a lot of Côte-des-Neigers would describe as their own background, a quarter Russian, a quarter Jewish, a quarter Latvian, a quarter Armenian, and together it makes somebody who's interested about making the world a better place, someone who knew he was walking into torture and said yes. And I remember asking him that question in person prior to the war starting, when I had an opportunity to have an in-depth discussion with him. And he's heroic. I don't know if I'd be able to make the same decision, but I hope that by highlighting this man's decisions and the work that he's made over the course of his life, that'll inspire others, better people than myself, more people, to make similar decisions that benefit democracy and the continuation of justice around the world. So I'll end that. I do hope that the efforts that are put through this council's vote resonate internationally, but also that we each take an opportunity to look up Vlad's work, look up the Magnitsky sanctions and Magnitsky laws and how they were put in place, and even pick up a book of Bill Browder's, either Red Notice or the Freezing Deal, that he's put out 2 books that read like Soviet spy novels, but happen in current day and are a reflection of how our institutions should protect those who are fighting for democracy, but don't always. So in conferring honorary citizenship, which was the original intention of the motion, we have in effect, we want to confer Montreal's support and Côte-des-Neiges-NDG's support for the inspirational role model and global citizenship model that Mr. Vladimir Kara-Murza and his family, who suffer probably more than he does thinking about him, can only imagine what his 3 kids and his wife are going through. And I wish them the best, and please continue your fight. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Mr. Burrows, for proposing this motion. Donc, ça a en effet été une opportunité pour nous de davantage nous éduquer, en fait, ce qui est fait par M. Kara-Murza. Certains d'entre nous venant de pays qui ne sont pas entrés depuis longtemps dans le groupe des États de droit, je dirais, c'est clair que ce type de parcours est extrêmement inspirant. Maintenant, on a proposé des modifications pour nous assurer que l'honneur que Kara-Murza va recevoir soit juste puis à la hauteur de ses accomplissements. Donc, dans la motion initiale, c'est écrit d'octroyer la citoyenneté honoraire montréalaise dans Côte-des-Neiges, Notre-Dame-de-Grâce. C'est quelque chose qui n'existe pas à Côte-des-Neiges, Notre-Dame-de-Grâce. Donc, on a proposé là, vraiment de s'assurer que en fait, on a gardé le fait que cette motion doit être déposée au conseil municipal de la ville de Montréal en septembre pour que l'ensemble du conseil puisse en prendre note. c'est vraiment la mairesse de Montréal, en fait, qui est en mesure de déterminer et d'octroyer ce type d'honneur. Donc, c'est vraiment dans ces instances-là, en fait, qu'il faut discuter au sein du parti et avec l'administration, en fait, comment est-ce qu'on pourrait honorer Monsieur Karamurza. Mais cela enlève rien au fait que c'est un honneur pour nous tous ici de soutenir, aussi, en fait, de voter en faveur de cette motion pour s'assurer de mettre en lumière ce que Monsieur Karamurza fait, en fait, pour les droits de la personne dans le monde. Donc, on va suivre avec intérêt ce qui se passe dans son parcours dans les semaines et les mois à venir. Donc, merci beaucoup, M. Morose, pour le dépôt de cette motion. Et c'est une motion qui est adoptée à l'unanimité telle qu'amendée.
Juste le commentaire en sortant. Oui. Merci beaucoup pour le travail aussi de votre équipe sur cet enjeu-là. Puis, j'espère bien trouver d'autres opportunités à collaborer ensemble. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Donc, l'ordre du jour étant épuisé, ceci met fin à ce conseil d'arrondissement du mois de septembre. Je vous remercie toutes et tous en ligne, les personnes qui étaient présentes, et puis on se retrouve le mois prochain pour une grosse séance où on va présenter le budget 2024 de l'arrondissement, en plus d'avoir la séance régulière du conseil d'arrondissement. Donc, le prochain conseil va débuter à 17h30. Je vous invite à surveiller notre site Internet pour vous assurer de ne pas manquer les informations nécessaires pour être présent et participer. Merci beaucoup et bonne soirée.